Good morning, friends. I welcome all the members to today's webinar on practical issues in professional ethics, multidisciplinary partnership firms, and preparation of certificates. As you know, as per our institute's guidelines, there are two mandatory subjects. One is accounting standards, and the second one is code of conduct and professional ethics. Every member has to at least attend one seminar on these subjects every year. We had account standards on auditing webinar in the month of April, and today we have this seminar on code of conduct. CA profession is one of the most respected profession in the world because we keep high standards and professional ethics. Unfortunately, nowadays we know more and more disciplinary cases are coming out. It is because only due to lack of due diligence and um, lack of, you can say that, ignorance of professional ethics. Today we have CA Mangesh Kinare sir, a very dynamic and energetic speaker. He's a speaker on national level, and he is one of the member of our ethical standards board. So I believe his expertise and knowledge will help us to educate ourselves today and some kind of value addition after this seminar. I wish all of you a very happy learning today. Now I request our member CA Pradeep Popat to do the formal introduction of our learned speaker. Over to Pradeep.
Thank you so much, sir. A very good morning to all the members here. No need to have a formal introduction to Mangesh Kinare sir. He is always a renowned speaker at ICAI with all his knowledge and experience, a vast experience, I must say, of over more than 30 years into this field of GST and business consultancy. So just a formal introduction to him. His educational background, he is, apart from being a fellow chartered accountant, he is a BCom, LLB and a DISA qualified. He is currently he is a member of Ethical Standard Board of ICAI for the year 21-22. He has been elected as a member of WIRC for 3 consecutive terms, that is from 2007 to 2016. He has been elected as a secretary of WIRC for the year 2010-11. He has been chairman of WIRC for 2013-14. He has been Central Council member of ICAI for the term 2016 to 2019, where under his leadership he has achieved many what we can say key pivotal roles which he has played. Like he has been a vice chairman board of studies, wherein he has played a key role for a new CA curriculum. He has been a chairman at committee for management accounting, whereas he has launched a diploma in management and business finance course. Member of examination committee of ICAI. He was a member of bench of a disciplinary committee of ICAI for 2 years, which is a quasi-judicial authority. He has been a vice chairman for taxation audits and review board. Also, he has been a vice chairman of committee for economic and commercial laws and at WTO in ICAI. He has been a vice chairman of committee of cooperatives and NPO. He has been a member of indirect tax committee, which has contributed and represented in many delegations of ICAI with respect to GST matters. So certain nominations he has held by ICAI. He was nominated as a member of Educational and Continuous Professional Development Committee of SAFA, which is South Asian Federation of Accountants, for the year 17-18. He represented ICAI in WTO, which is World Trade Organization, World Economic Forum at Geneva. He was an ICAI nominee on state level coordination committee, that is SLCC, headed by Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, for monitoring financial sector issues and creating public awareness. He was a member of ICA delegation on behalf of IFAC, which carried out due diligence of CPA Institute in Papua New Guinea. He was appointed by Government of India as an independent director on MOIL Limited, which is a mini PSU, which is a listed company. State government, he is a state government nominee on Finance Committee of Baba Saheb Ambedkar Technology University, which is at in District Raigad. He is a member for the scrutiny of self-finance private universities in Maharashtra, and he was a member of Fees Regulation Authority, which has been set up by Government of Maharashtra to regulate fees of private professional colleges. Now, the other professional engagements which he has had over his career is like he's been a lecturer in accountancy colleges, commerce colleges at Mumbai. He is also visiting faculty at certain other colleges of MBA and MMS, where he deals in the taxation matters. He has delivered lectures and presented papers at seminars, various seminars, one of which we are going to experience it today as well. So he has delivered lectures and is a panel speaker at refresher courses of Mumbai University staff training. He has written very good articles in Marathi newspapers and is also a panelist at television channels as an expert on GST, income tax, and other matters. He has taken many sessions on GST for trade and social organization. So all in all, he is a superstar for us today. So thank you so much, Mangesh Kinare ji, for joining us today. And to go ahead with your deliberations. Thank you, sir. And we are looking forward for an engaging session today. Thank you.
Should I start? Or
yes, sir.
Sanjay could say some few words. Sanjay being here, past chairman of Mumbai branch. You want to say a few words, Sanjay?
Sir, actually, nothing to say, sir. This is our own home ground, and everyone is loving you, and everyone has come here to listen you, sir. We always talk with each other. Now, today is your day, sir. You take the charge and you share your knowledge, experience with us.
Okay, Sanjay, thank you. The convener of Panvel CP Study Circle, my very good friend Jamon, Deputy Convener Amol, Pratik, who had kind enough to introduce me very nicely. All the past conveners, I mean, one can say founder conveners, Manish and Anand, my very good friend Shrikant, who is here. I think Jayavant also is here. So all my good friends, of course, everybody is my good friend here. And Tandel sir, if he's here, because being pioneer in Panvel. Very good morning to all of you. First of all, let me thank the conveners and all the core committee members of Panvel CP Study Circle for giving me this opportunity to express my views in front of you. I recollect, I was just talking to Jamon, I think on 15th February 2020, I had been there, if I'm not wrong. I was not well, and all of you waited for me for at least half an hour or 45 minutes. I had to drive to this thing, and I was not well, but it's so kind of you that you had waited for so much of time there. But still, now we are in online mode. We are not able to meet physically, at least in the gatherings. Individually, we'll definitely meet. And this subject today is basically relating to the multidisciplinary partnerships and certificates and reports. Some aspects of code of ethics I thought I will touch. Code of ethics in the sense, the main, what you can say, the important aspects or case studies on code of ethics, I thought I will take with this, so that some things will be, we can start the session in that right perspective. Now, friends, I know that's in a kind of online sessions or webinars, there is always a limitation that member log in from the mobile, or no, you may not be able to see the presentation, or perhaps at times you are busy or something of that kind, you prefer to listen. I would request at least sometimes that whenever I say, if it is possible, you can see the presentation, at least one can have a fair idea of what we are talking, especially in that certificates and reports. Secondly, I already give disclaimers always that in the webinar we are dependent on the internet, and therefore if there is any internet issue, please excuse me. I will try and repair it, because I have 3-4 connections. I will try and come back again immediately if at all there are issues. But so with these disclaimers, I think let us begin with the first discussion. So that typically we are discussing today 3 topics per se relating to code of ethics. One is multidisciplinary partnership, which is a new development. Second is some aspects or some important case studies or some important issues of code of ethics. Of course, many of them I have taken already in the Navi Mumbai branch, if you have attended my session there, but still I'll touch upon that. And lastly, the certificates and reports, what care we should take and how we could prepare that. Now, friends, to begin with the multidisciplinary partnerships, let me tell you that this is not at all a new concept to us in the terms of the legal provisions. We already had these legal provisions from 2006. So when the 2006 Act was amended, it is already there from that time in our Act. So you can imagine our forefathers, or the leaders have thought from those days that this is going to be there in future. Section 2, subsection 2 enables us. I mean, the chartered accountant can be deemed to be in practice if he carries on the activities in his name or in the name of firm along with others. So there's an enabling provision. Clause 4, part 1 of first schedule, there's an enabling provision. It clearly gives us an indication that we can form a partnership with 6 type of professionals. And of course, there is a regulation of 190B of Chartered Accountants Regulation, which 53B of the Chartered Accountants Regulation, which specifies that which professionals we can undertake the multidisciplinary partnership. The whole idea is basically that as a chartered accountant firm, many times we require the support of the other professionals when we want to express an opinion or when we are going to execute an assignment. Say company secretaries, architects, engineers. So that time, if we have them as a partner in our firm, it will be perhaps more easier for us to rely on them. And holistically, if you consider the entire, one can say, capacity of the firm can be expressed in a better manner if we have these professionals also with us. Now, friends, from that perspective, these amendments or these changes were there in the law. There were few professionals which are expressly allowed in regulation 53B, that is members of Institute of Company Secretaries, members of Institute of Cost Accountant, members of Institute of Architects, members of the Institute of the Actuaries, engineers, and other professionals which perhaps may be allowed, lawyers who are the member of the bar councils. It is also have an enabling provisions to give an council and authority to allow other professionals to be partnered with the chartered accountants. Out of that, now what is the current scenario? This is the enabling provision. Now, current scenario is, friend, we have this enabling provision. Similarly, other professional bodies also may or may not have enabling provision in their law. And accordingly, at present, with whom we can enter into partnership? Why this is now being said to be allowed, although the provisions were there in the Act? This is being said to be allowed from 1st July because the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has approved the form number 18, which is there for the purpose of formation of the firm or the addition or change in the constitution of the firm. Earlier, there was no, kind of a modus operandi to form that firm. Since now that form has been approved, now one can register the multidisciplinary partnerships with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and therefore it has been said that now it is allowed. Actually, legally speaking, it is allowed from 2006 only, but practically it is allowed now from 1st July 2021. Now, friends, as I said, that the enabling provisions of other laws are also important. As far as the Institute of Company Secretaries, the Institute of Cost Accountants, Institute of Architects are concerned, their laws is clearly providing, very clearly, just like our law, that they can form a partnership. Their member, whether in practice or not, can form a partnership with any other professional. So there is no bar there. As far as Institute of Actuaries is concerned, their law provides that the practicing actuary cannot enter into partnership with any other professional. So it means that actuary who is a member of that institute but not practicing can enter into partnership. Engineers is concerned, there is no law per se like governing the engineers, but there is an institute of engineers, right? So engineer who is a member of an institute of engineer, or engineer who is a past and degree of engineering from the recognized university formed under any law, naturally can be entered into partnership. So now at present we are able to enter into partnership with 5 different types of professionals, that is member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, member of Institute of Cost Accountants of India, member of Institute of Indian Institute of Architects, then engineers who are, now when I'm talking member means practicing or not practicing. Now engineer who are members of the Institute of Engineers or engineer from university which is recognized by the law. As far as actuaries are concerned, we are allowed to enter into partnership by our law with a member of an Institute of Institute of Actuaries, but actuaries law does not allow practicing actuaries to enter into partnership. So one can derive that we can enter into partnership with a member of Institute of Actuaries who are not holding certificate of practice under their law. So these are the 5 professionals we can enter into partnership out of these 6 professionals which are already listed under regulation 53B of Chartered Accountants Regulation. One profession with whom we are allowed to enter but we are not able to enter because their profession is not allowing is the lawyers. Lawyers who are members of the Bar Council. The Bar Council rules does not allow practicing advocates to be a partner with any person who is other than advocate. So naturally, at present, we will not be able to enter into partnership with the lawyers who are member of the Bar Council. Then we will not be able to enter into partnership with actuaries who are holding COPs or other professional bodies, members of other professional bodies or foreign qualifications. ICI has still not allowed members with having foreign qualifications to be a partner with chartered accountants. Now, the provision very clearly says that the firm, multidisciplinary firm of chartered accountants, at least one partner should be chartered accountant. Needless to say that, but why I'm telling you specifically, it may so happen that one chartered accountant, one company secretary, one cost accountant, and one architect form a multidisciplinary firm of chartered accountants. Later on, suppose chartered accountant retires or dies, then these 3 people who are not chartered accountant cannot continue as a firm of chartered accountant, multidisciplinary firm of chartered accountant. What I'm discussing today, friends, is just something which has been already published by the institute. I'm not going beyond that because there are certain other things which perhaps thought process is going on. I'll explain that. So when how the multidisciplinary partnerships can be formed, just like we form our firm, if the multidisciplinary partnership is a new partnership which is to be formed, naturally you have to do the entire process of formation of the firm or registration of firm, new firm, chartered accountant firm, which we follow. If the existing firm wants to introduce the non-CA partner, then that form 18 has to be filed, which now includes very clearly that other professionals. So this multidisciplinary partnerships, once it is formed, it will be called as multidisciplinary partnership of chartered accountants in practice or MDP CAs in practice. So that abbreviation will be added to the firm. So ABC and company. Now earlier you used to say chartered accountants. Now if this is an MDP firm, it will be called as MDP CAs in practice, right? So that will be MDP, multidisciplinary firm of chartered accountants in practice. It will not be called chartered accountants, mind you. Secondly, if the existing firm is converting into the MDP, right, the MDP abbreviation, rather for any MDP firm, the MDP abbreviation will be added, right, with the firm. Naturally, if the existing firm is converting into the MDP, its name or its firm registration number will change. Name will change because the abbreviation or the suffix has been changed. Chartered accountant की जगह multidisciplinary partnership firm of chartered accountants आ जाएगा. And even FRN will change. FRN will change because now they will have to identify its MDP firm, and therefore the FRN would be something different, right? It will be adding MDP in that FRN. Right now we have say 10064W or something of that kind. Now it will be MDP added there, so FRN also will change. Now, of course, Institute is contemplating and discussing with CNAG and all, because even if the FRN change, the standing of the firm should not change. And I don't think those authorities also will be that much fussy about it. Now, as I said, when the firm is formed, certain documents have to be submitted. As far as Chartered Accountants documentation, Institute already has. But other than CA professionals who are joining, their documents will have to be submitted to the Institute. And which documents? That is validity of degree and validity of membership of the respective institutes. Now, these documents will have to be certified by the independent chartered accountant, not the chartered accountant of the same part who is a partner in the same firm. So, independent chartered accountant will be certifying these two documents. That two documents I'm talking about is degree, valid degree and valid membership. Only degree should not be there, but the membership of the institute also should be there. So these two documents will have to be verified by the independent chartered accountant, uploaded on ICI website, so that these people can be admitted as partner. Now, this MDP CA firm can render all types of services which otherwise chartered accountant firm can render, no problem at all. In addition to that, they are allowed to render those services which the other professionals who are partner in that firm are entitled to provide. So if a company secretary is a partner in the multidisciplinary firm, the services which a practicing company secretary can render, this MDP firm of chartered accountants also can render. So friends, you can just imagine the synergy, the kind of a capacity which will be there in the MDP firm of chartered accountants. But as far as the reports, audits are concerned, tax audits, I mean, any audits are concerned, only the chartered accountants will be allowed to sign those reports or certificates which are to be signed by chartered accountant. So it does not give authority to non-CAs to sign on behalf of chartered accountant. Please remember that. So this is not kind of a exchange of signing authority. It is just an addition of two professionals so that the capacity will be more. Joint capacity will be more. Now, friends, Companies Act provision section 141 very clearly says that the firm of chartered accountants, even a company law recognizes that there can be a multidisciplinary partnership firm. The auditor will be appointed as chartered accountant firm where the majority of the partners are chartered accountant. That has been mentioned in Companies Act. So naturally, if a multidisciplinary partnership wants to be an auditor of a company, the majority of the partners must be chartered accountants. Now, this majority will be in both criteria. Majority criteria has to be fulfilled in two terms. One is a number and second is share. I'll give you an example. If there are three chartered accountants in a multidisciplinary firm, there are three chartered accountants, one cost accountant and one company secretary. Chartered accountants are in majority, so number criteria they are fulfilling. But collectively, if this chartered accountants profit sharing ratio is say 45% and company secretary and cost accountants profit share is say 55%, then the share criteria they are not fulfilling. So that firm will not be able to sign the company's balance sheets, and therefore both the criteria will have to be fulfilled. That is, the partners, chartered accountant partners should be majority in number, as well as they must have a majority share. So both these conditions will have to be fulfilled so that the multidisciplinary partnership will be able to be appointed as auditors of companies. So please remember that it does not give authority to others to sign where the chartered accountants have to sign, and it does not give an authority to the firm where chartered accountants in minority, either in number or in share, to be an auditor of company. So please remember that this is very, very important. Now, as far as internal regulations are concerned, ICI is also will develop the internal regulations. Say for example, if a branch is there, now a multidisciplinary partnership is formed with say 3 chartered accountants, 1 cost accountant, 1 company secretary. Now they want to expand the business. So can I have a sitting in Mumbai? Can I have a firm in Pune? Sorry, branch office in Pune where company secretary is in charge. Right now there is no such authority given, so I cannot have branch in charge as other than chartered accountants. But in an exceptional circumstances, institute has said that the firm may apply to the institute and then the institute will consider whether to give or not. So permission is needed. Permission may be granted depending upon the circumstances of the matter, right? So that permission will be granted, but you cannot simply appoint anybody as a branch in charge, any other professional as branch in charge. As far as code of ethics is concerned, let me tell you friends, ethical standard board, when I was also part of the meeting, we have been very clearly told that not to talk much about the applicability of ethical principles to everything, because certain things about applicability are being discussed and may go to council, I don't know. So before that, it is not proper to discuss. What I'm talking about is the nitty-gritties, right? Generally, it is a code of ethics of chartered accountants will be applicable to the multidisciplinary firms, as well as the code of ethics of respective professionals will be applicable to that respective professional. So both things will be applicable, but nitty-gritty is how in a given circumstances, who will be responsible. For example, say in our case, when the firm should not advertise, say for example, or solicit. Say for example, the cost accountant partner goes and solicits. Now who will be responsible? Whether we can take an action against firm. So all these things, perhaps I'm not going in detail of that. Nitty-gritties of the code of ethics, applicability to multidisciplinary partnerships is still being thought about and discussed about. Generally speaking, code of ethics will be applicable to the multidisciplinary partnerships also, right? So that is something, or one can say the broad important features of multidisciplinary partnerships. If at all any questions are there, we will take up at the end if you don't mind. Let's go ahead with the second aspect of today's presentation, that is important issues and cases in ethics. Now, I think some of the aspects I have already discussed in the Navi Mumbai seminar also. I think most of the aspects I might have discussed, but still I'll take a few things in this. Those who have not attended perhaps will be benefited. Please don't mind if I'm repeating certain things. My first issue is whether chartered accountants can render the service of filing tax returns. Now, in one seminar, it was asked to me that one chartered accountant asked a question that he was asked a question by the tax authorities. आपको किधर authority दी है return file करने की? Now that was regarding, I think, service tax return or something. Now, friends, where is the authority to us? What is the provision? So at least let us understand. I'm not going in detail of the provision, but section 2 subsection 2 specifies the activities with the section 2 subsection 2 of CA Act specifies the activities which chartered accountants can undertake. Now in that, all the activities are in relation to auditing and accounting. Correct? Now in that, there is a residuary clause, such other services as prescribed by council. So such other services, council has prescribed around 28 services under management consultancy and other services. In that 28 services also, almost all the services are basically from finance and planning angle. There is one end of the service. There is one last service which calls as an administrative service. Now, administrative service has been defined as in the volume 1 of Code of Ethics as assisting in the routine matters to the client. In that, they have given an example that what kind of services are there in administrative services. That is preparation of statutory forms for client approval and filing such statutory forms as per instructions of client. So here comes an authority to us to file returns on behalf of clients. Now, friends, on behalf of clients means we are not supposed to be responsible for that. We are only executing. It's an administrative service. And what does that say is that preparation of statutory forms for client approval. So every time it should go for approval of the client. and uploading that form or filing that form as instructed by client. So I must have in hand the instructions of client to file those returns. So please remember these two things. Now, as regards the other occupations, engagements, etc., I can be a director, simpliciter in a company, whether I can be a partner in an LLP which is carrying out the business activity. That, just like a director, simpliciter, or independent director, whether I can be one can say a partner who is not drawing any remuneration, or sleeping partner in LLP which is doing a business activity. This question I'm posing because there was again question from a member whether I can have an LLP wherein my brother, my wife are partners and I'm a sleeping partner, and we can carry out some kind of a business in that. Right? There was some in this online scenario, they wanted to start some online business. So definitely, friends, we are not allowed to be partners in LLP of any kind. It cannot be a sleeping partner or non-remuneration partner in LLP which is doing a business activity. LLP which is doing a professional activity, there's no problem at all. We can, chartered accountant LLP, we can be a partner. As far as agricultural activity is concerned, we are allowed to do agricultural activity, right? We can allowed to hold an agricultural land and carry out an agricultural activity. But my suggestion is that please don't, take undue advantage of this. One should not carry out the business under the name of agricultural activity. Now, by business, we all know that carrying on the business means owning different land, renting the lands, then hiring the labor, having a distribution system. So intention of business should not be there. Shares derivative transaction, what should be the scenario? Now, recently the institute has allowed or treated derivative transaction as investment income. So there is no problem about derivative transactions to be carried out by the practicing chartered accountant. But no such thing has been allowed for share transaction. So share transaction, which is in the nature of trading activity, is not allowed to be carried out by the practicing chartered accountant, which is in the nature of trading activity. So typically intraday trading or frequent buying and selling of shares may be treated as trading activity depending upon the facts of the case. So that may not be allowed. Investment in shares is allowed, no problem at all in that regard. Correct? But it should not amount to trading activity. Now, regarding HUF, what can be done in HUF? Council or the institute very clearly says that per se chartered accountant should not create HUF. Now, I'm explaining that again. Some confusions were there, I think, in this regard. The HUF comes into existence automatically once the son or daughter is born in a family. So that branch HUF comes into existence automatically as per law. What institute says that if you have an HUF where you are inheriting certain income or certain investments, and then you are continuing with that HUF, no harm at all. But you cannot create. What does that mean? Right? जैसे कि family में immediately बच्चा पैदा हो, son or daughter पैदा होते, then immediately I am borrowing some things or I am taking out something from outside and putting it in HUF and opening an account. So that kind of a thing one should not do. There can come some things as the law suggests. I'm not elaborating these things because then otherwise I will be suggesting certain things. I don't want to do that. Read that law. How that HUF property can come into existence. It comes from the lenient ascendants. Right? So lenient ascendant से जब पैसा आ जाता है, जब property आ जाती है that HUF में, then that HUF is automatically created. So that way that HUF can be created for the purpose of doing some activity. HUF create karna, that is not, I'm not saying not allowed, but that is not feasible or not correct. Now, friends, in HUF also, even if there are inherited property or inherited investment is there, we are not allowed to do any business activity in HUF. What we are allowed to do is only an investment. Now, investment can be from the surplus funds of HUF. So you cannot borrow and do certain things in HUF. You cannot, take what you can say as gifts in the nature of borrowing from somebody and do something in HUF. I'm again not elaborating certain things, or they are on webinar. So Typically, HUF can do its investment activity from its own funds. One cannot carry out the business activity. There is one exception to it, that if a father is carrying out a business in HUF, he has only one son who is a practicing chartered accountant. After the death of the father, the HUF naturally, the only one son becomes a karta of HUF. Now that HUF is doing a business activity and he is also in practice. Now, friends, frankly speaking, it is a kind of a by default. He became a karta by default. Now, in such scenarios, the council may allow on the specific application to them, inheritance or succession. Council may allow a practicing chartered accountant to be a karta of HUF on two conditions. Number one, he should not take active part in the business of the HUF. And number two, he will be treated as part-time in practice and he will not be able to do any attest functions. Now, naturally, friends, it is very harsh on a person who is inheriting the HUF from the father, but he will not be treated as full-time in practice. Now, one issue I want to highlight is, and I always highlight, is the general power of attorney. Yesterday also there was a session in WRC, there was one question. Now, many times, friend, in our practice, we tend to take kind of an, or we tempted to take a general power of attorney. Say, for example, my father is not doing well, he's having a business, he is not able to sign, so he gives me general power of attorney that wherever his signature is required, I'll be able to sign. Now, there was a specific question that my wife is doing one business, but she is not able to go outside and, due to a small child at home. So whether I can take a general power of attorney and sign on her behalf for her business. Needless to say, friend, these are nothing but the planning activities, and therefore such kind of a signatures everywhere and anywhere under general power of attorney will not be allowed under code of ethics. So specific, yes, for banks, checks, etc., father is not able to sign, so I have been given an authority, no problem at all. You can be a joint account holder also and you can sign that check, there's no issue. But otherwise, general power of attorney, and that too specific period one has to take, or specific purposes one has to take. Now, otherwise, one cannot have a general power of attorney to run the businesses of spouses or fathers or such kind of relatives, because institute also knows that this is opening a Pandora's box. So one can do any kind of a business activity under general power of attorney under anybody's name. So that is not allowed. Please remember that general power of attorney is not allowed to us for doing a business activity, I'm talking about, or for doing any kind of an activity for client. Even in a tax cases, etc., you must take a very specific power of attorney. Now, member of recently the RBI has come up with the circular that under urban cooperative banks, under the board of directors, there will be some management board or a board of management who will be formed for advising the board of directors on certain critical issues. Now, they have also specified that who can become a part of this board of management, that is expert persons. In that, one is a chartered accountant. So the question was raised whether a chartered accountant in practice can become the member of board of management of urban cooperative banks. Now, this issue, in fact, I have written to the ethical standard board, and we discussed in the ethical standard board, and recently it has been allowed, saying that a board of management, member of board of management should be behaving like a director simpliciter. So he should not take active part in any of the matters of the bank. He should not sign except for that board of management decisions. So other than that, he cannot involve anywhere. He should not take any fees other than sitting fees, right, when he is on the board of management of such banks. So that is allowed now. As far as communication is concerned, some issues are raised that if the previous auditor is not responding, then what should I do? That this is a very typical case. Now, friends, you know that communication is a mandatory on us whenever we are appointed as an auditor in place of another chartered accountant, right? Or the place which was held earlier by another chartered accountant. Now, there are two things. If it's a statutory audit, that is an audit under any act for which we are appointed, before communication, we must analyze whether, or we must find out whether the undisputed audit fee of the earlier auditor is pending or what. If undisputed audit fee is pending, that works shall not be accepted by the incoming auditor. So communication issue comes later. So that shall not be accepted. So there is no issue at all. But suppose the undisputed audit fee has been paid to a earlier statutory auditor, or in case of other audits, right, the communication has been made, suppose, right, communication has been made in case of other audits or in case of a statutory audit where the undisputed audit fee has been paid, but that earlier auditor is not responding, then what should I do? Now friends, our provision says that the communication has to be made and that has to be duly acknowledged. Once the communication is acknowledged by that auditor, then it is not the duty of the incoming auditor to wait indefinitely. After the acknowledgement, one should wait for a reasonable time, and reasonable time is said to be 15 days. It's not written anywhere, but by general parlance, it is meant to be a 15 days time. So one can wait for 15 days time after the communication is acknowledged by the outgoing auditor, and within 15 days, if there is no communication, one can start with the work, no problem at all. Provided, again, I repeat, in case of a statutory audits, one has to see first whether the undisputed fees has been paid or not. Now, there may be a communication from an auditor saying that I don't have any issue, but my fees has not been paid. Now, whether one should, wait for the payment of fees if it is not a statutory audit, code does not put any stipulation or mandatory condition in that regard. But as a good practice, we must definitely try that our professional brothers or sisters' fees, which is pending, has to be paid. So one can write, or one can, try to convince the client to do that, but it is not bar to wait for till the payment of that fees. Now, friends, as far as undisputed fees is concerned, if it is a cash basis of accounting, how I will be able to find whether the undisputed fee has been paid or not? Because the code says that undisputed fee means the fee which has been provided in the books of account signed by an auditor and auditee both. Now, in cash basis of system of accounting, that fees will not be provided in the books of account. My personal view in this, that let us try and understand or interpret this code of ethics in its true spirit. So if you have to execute or understand it in true spirit, whenever in statutory audit any fees is pending of the outgoing auditor, then in case of statutory audits, for the conducting that audit, then one should not accept the appointment. So in cash basis of system also, one should try and find out from the appointment letter what was the audit fee decided, and check from the bank statement subsequently whether that audit fee has been paid or not paid. Right? So please take that. That is my humble suggestion. Although the law is not very clear about cash basis of system of accounting, I have again written to the Ethical Standard Board in this regard also, and perhaps in the next meeting this matter would be discussed. Now regarding disputes etc, client आपको बताएगा statutory audit को मैंने पहले वाले को तो resign ले लिया, remove कर दिया, tax audit है तो उसकी fee दी नहीं है, then हम लोग बोलेंगे कि नहीं fee नहीं दी है, तो I will not able to accept the audit. The client might say that नहीं fee नहीं दी because your dispute है तो हम fee देंगे नहीं ना. Now friends, client may say there is a dispute, but please see to it that the dispute is a real one. Simply writing a mail or letter that I am not agreeable to your fees is not a dispute. So please look into it. The actual dispute होना चाहिए, तो ही वो undisputed fee नहीं हो सकती है. Right? Going further, friend, there is an interesting question. If the previous auditor has resigned or surrendered a COP, मतलब उसको करना ही नहीं है काम. He doesn't want to do that work. Still we have to write for his communication to him. उसने खुद छोड़ दिया, उसको खुद करना नहीं है. He doesn't want to continue. He has surrendered the COP, right? He has stopped doing the practice. Then whether still I should communicate? Yes, the code says that one should communicate with the auditor in all earlier auditor in all circumstances. It is not that उसके ऊपर कोई compulsion करके उसको छोड़ा गया है. That's why we are communicating. The communication is to understand whether there are any important issues in the audit which the incoming auditor must keep in mind while conducting the audit. Now, going further regarding solicitations, etc., can a practicing chartered accountant formally request, write, or apply to other professional for other professional work? Now, friends, The code very clearly allows us that the practicing chartered accountant can write or request to another chartered accountant in practice. So individually one can request. If any young members are listening to this, if at all one wants to ask for work, one can ask it to the individual chartered accountant who is in practice. So two things important. One is individual, one person at a time, and that chartered accountant must be in practice. So one who is in employment, you cannot write to that chartered accountant. But individually, yes. But WhatsApp group पे अगर message भेजोगे तो individually होता नहीं है वो. And that's why one should not send a message on WhatsApp group that we are intending to take up this work. So if you have anything, please forward it to me. Please don't do that. It's an utter violation of our code of ethics. Right? So such kind of a thing we are not allowed to do. Can CA apply for tenders? Yes, we can apply for the tenders provided we are doing it as per the tendering guidelines. Now, tendering guidelines says that if the work is exclusively reserved for chartered accountants, the tender for such work should not be applied unless the minimum fees is prescribed in that tender. Say, for example, statutory audit of any corporation company, the tender has been floated for that. That statutory audit work is exclusively reserved for chartered accountants. Nobody else can do that legally, right? Therefore, such tender cannot be responded or shall not be responded by chartered accountants. But such tender, there's one exception, such tenders can be responded if the minimum fees has been prescribed in the tender. Then in that case, we can freely apply. All other tenders where the work is not exclusively reserved for chartered accountants can be freely responded to by the chartered accountants. No harm at all in this. Now, the question is raised that suppose an internal audit tender is floated, and in that it is mentioned that only chartered accountant firms should apply. Whether that is such tenders can be responded to. Now here, the internal audit work is not exclusively reserved for chartered accountants. Naturally, now when what is mentioned, only chartered accountant should respond, or only chartered accountant firm should fill up the tender. That restriction or that exclusiveness has been put by an auditee. There is no other law which says that the internal audit work can only be done by chartered accountant. So here the work is not exclusively reserved for chartered accountant by law. It has been, restriction has been put by auditee. So there is no harm in responding to such tenders also. Question many times arises that where the client can't ask for the quotation. Say for example, the internal auditors have to be appointed, or some system audit work has to be given by a bank. Now they ask कि आपका quotation कितना होगा, हमको भेज दो. Now whether we can give such quotations or not. Now friends, quotations cannot be given by a practicing chartered accountant just like that. Let us take, the code says that there should be a positive intention or the inquiry or the shortlisting of the chartered accountant firm. So there must be a communication from the prospective client that we intend to appoint, or we have shortlisted you in certain for the purpose of the appointments of an internal auditors. So for that purpose, you now please submit your quotation. So here, after discussions of the work and etc., you can give your quotation, no harm at all, when there is a specific inquiry in this regard. Now, whether practicing chartered accountants can advertise. Now, many of us may answer no, but my answer to it is yes, we can advertise. There is no bar on advertisements per se, but we cannot solicit by virtue of advertisement. So factual advertisements are allowed to us. Now, say for example, I'm changing my office from place A to place B, or I want to recruit certain employees in my firm. Now that factual advertisements is allowed, but there should not be any kind of a solicitation. Say for example, in recruitment, say I want to recruit 2 chartered accountants for GST work. Now I cannot say that we have been experts and we have been already serving our clients in direct taxation. Now we want to venture in the GST or indirect taxation, and for that purpose we want to hire 2 expert persons. Such kind of things cannot be done in the advertisement. you can at the most say that 2 chartered accountants, the vacancy for 2 chartered accountants for handling GST work, people who have expertise can apply. Simple. So that factual advertisements one can do. In addition to that, there is something called as a write-up. Now the firms are allowed to do their or prepare their write-up and advertise through that write-up. That is, they can put this write-up even in a newspaper. Now that write-up of the firm has to be as per the write-up guidelines issued by the institute. Now what does that write-up guidelines say? Briefly I can tell, because that is the detailed guidelines. It is typically, to be honest and truthfulness, you cannot have any kind of an expertise attached or any kind of a comparisons with anybody. You cannot have any recommendations in that. You cannot say that we are expert in so and so. You cannot have kind of a solicitations in that, or you cannot have any you can say mentioning of names of the clients in that. You can mention the name, you can mention the kind of a services you are providing, but names of the client should not be mentioned in that. Then one cannot have any award, etc., of the partner or a partner's social designations be mentioned in the write-up. So this write-up is nothing but the factual thing about the practicing chartered accountant. So name, address, the staff strength, the quality, the partner's experience, the firm, when it was formed. Now all these things one can give. Services rendered by the firm, yes, one can already give, right? But other than that, of course, that write-up has to be within the font of 14. 14 se zyada nahi ho sakta hai font. So such kind of a write-up. Now what does that mean? Anytime any client wants, the prospective clients wants कि आपके firm का profile तो भेज दो. Now that profile is nothing but write-up. So when we prepare that profile, these write-up guidelines have to be implemented. You cannot write the names of the client in that profile or write-up, right? You cannot write that so and so big person has been our client, names of the client, or for that purpose one can say somebody has said us that they are happy with our services. Say a leading bank has given us a good appreciation letter. We cannot say that we have been appreciated by so and so bank or so and so client in our write-up or in our profile. So it should be only and only on the factual whatever information we can prepare that write-up. And once such write-up is prepared, we can circulate it by electronic mode or a print mode. So you can put a full page advertisement in Times of India also giving that write-up. But there should not be even a 1% or a 0.1% solicitation in such advertisements, right? So advertisements are allowed, no harm in that. Now, an interesting question was asked that there was a community program was there, and the souvenir was to be printed by that community. And they said that, okay, community ke chartered accountants hai na, aap advertisement de do. So whether I can write that with best compliments from so and so firm, right? My personal view is, friends, we are allowed to advertise by way of write-up. So why you want to write best compliments, etc.? Perhaps the best compliments may be treated as a solicitation. So you can put a write-up, name, address, and telephone numbers. Fine, sufficient. Give that information. Or you give services rendered also, no problem at all. But with best compliments may lead to advertisement solicitation, according to me. So better to put and such advertisements. We have compulsions many times that to give an advertisement in say community or local Ganesh Utsav Mandal, unka souvenir nikalta hai. So that kind of a thing we can simply give or use these write-up guidelines and give a small kind of an advertisement which is required. Whether we can become a members of network, etc., say BNI network or urban clad, either physical or virtual, that is networks or aggregators. We are not allowed to be such members, right? We cannot enter into any such kind of an arrangement कि हम इतना पैसा देते हैं आपके वेबसाइट पे नाम रखो जो भी काम आएगा हमको. That kind of a thing we are not allowed to do. Now cards stationery also we are allowed to print our cards. What will be the contents? We are not allowed to print any such kind of a social attainments or such kind of a awards or any such attachments with the social organizations. Nothing should be printed on our cards and stationery. We are allowed to print only our designation of chartered accountant, our degrees, Now degrees also, the CA degree, other degrees which are recognized by the institute or government in India, universities which are formed under any law for the time being in course. So under that, whatever degrees I am getting, and diplomas of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. The certificate courses are not allowed to be printed on our cards. So let us not indulge into that, right? Many of the cards I have seen of the youngsters that so and so firm, BCom, LLB, or whatever, FCA, FAFD. Now, FAFD is a certificate course. Let us not print it on our card or stationery, right? So, sir, let's have that thing in mind when we are printing these cards and stationery. I'm just taking few cases for discussion and very important cases on the important aspects. I'm not going in detail of that. These cases I'm repeating many places because these cases are very close to our heart. Many of us may be encountering with this kind of a circumstances or scenarios in our practical life almost many times. Now, confidentiality. Now, clause 1 of part 1 of second schedule talks about the confidentiality. We cannot share any information which we have received in the course of our profession regarding our client without permission of the client, or if it is required under any law for the time being in force, I can disclose that. So only two scenarios I can share the information of client. One is specific permission of the client, or if the law requires me to share that permission. Couple of cases I always tell in this, that a chartered accountant was processing a bank loan, and that in bank loan he was asked by the bankers to give the details of the godowns of the client, and he produced that details without asking the client because he wanted to do a service in a very fast. So he produced that details. He was knowing, unfortunately for him, one godown that client did not want to show to anybody for whatever reason, right? That reason is not important. Conduct of chartered accountant is important. So that the client filed a case against the chartered accountant that you have not taken my permission to disclose this information. So we feel that client और मेरा काफी अच्छा है, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, और मुझे client को service देनी है. We are too eager to give service, but let's take note of all the provisions of our code of ethics when we do that. Second, a very eye-opener case which Vazir sir always tells, and I was just discussing, and he said, this has to be told to many people, that the chartered accountant was having the files, income tax files of the family. Now, one day, the daughter-in-law in that family came for the income tax return copy. Now, she was normally interacting with the chartered accountant firm, so जो xerox copies थे वो दे दिए उनको income tax return के. Subsequently, it was found that that daughter-in-law was fighting a dowry case, sorry, not dowry case, divorce petition in the court, and these income tax returns were required to quantify for the purpose of quantification of alimony. Now, these other members in the family got wild with chartered accountants. आपको किसने कहा था कि हमारे copies उनको दे देंगे करके? Now, many times we don't know exactly what is going on at the client's residence or at their family. So please don't treat the family as a client. It is an individual who is your client, right? In this case, they filed a case against chartered accountant for sharing these income tax return copies. So individual is our client, not the family is our client. Now, legally, when it is required, we have to share. Now, what do you mean by legally? There was an interesting question yesterday also in the WRC program, that if there is a phone call from police station to share the information about the client, whether I should share or not. Now, legally, now phone call can be said to be legally. So we have to politely tell the police that please, my law does not permit me. So if you can write me a couple of lines that under which provisions of criminal procedure code you want this information, I will immediately give you. But otherwise, I cannot do that as per my law. You can show them our law also. It is clause 1, part 2 of the, part 1 of the second schedule of the CA Act. So information of the client cannot be shared that easily with others. Then custody of clients' assets and money or digital signatures, very important, and I'm taking it everywhere that so loosely we are doing these things for client. We are paying taxes for the client. We are handling the monies of the client for the purpose of practice. Now we are perhaps not taking the care which is required. Now in this regard, I don't know, I might have said this case, but I'll again mention this, that when I was on a disciplinary bench, this case happened in front of us only. We have only pronounced the judgment in this, that uh, um, advance tax was to be paid for the client. Say for the September महीना है तो 15 September में advance tax देना था. On 1st September, the substantial amount came in the account of the chartered accountant from the client. It was a separate account case for the tax payment, no problem at all. Now that substantial amount, that advance tax was paid on 14th of September. Legally, there is no issue, right? It is paid within 15th September. So far so good. But subsequently, when there was an issue, the client filed case against the chartered accountant saying that you have used my money for 13 days time. Now, your law says that the client's money has to be utilized for the purpose for which it is intended within the reasonable time. नाउ 1 तारीख को अगर मैंने आपको पैसा दिया है एडवांस टैक्स पेमेंट के लिए, 13 दिन रखने का आपको जरूरत क्या है? ये रीजनेबल टाइम होता है क्या? नाउ फ्रेंड्स, very difficult to substantiate. We had asked for that in that case for the bank statement of the chartered accountant. Now in that bank statement, that balance was there in the account, but unfortunately there were receipt and payment entries in that account. So on first in first out basis, within that 13 days, that amount is deemed to have been utilized by the chartered accountant. Now friends, therefore, whenever we handle the client's money, it has to be used for that as early as possible, immediately. Now you will say that whether I should pay advance tax. Suppose एक client 1 तारीख को देता है, दूसरा client 2 तारीख को देता है, तीसरा client 5 तारीख को देता है. Now whether I should go on paying advance tax only from 1st September to 10th, 15th September. Now there is a solution to everything, friends. We have a documentation in our thing. Let us have a kind of documentation or a system. I'm just suggesting, it's not mandatory as such, but I'm just suggesting that we should instruct the client that you must pay, make the payment or deposit the money by 10th of September, and advance tax will be paid from the office in any case from 11th, any time between 11th to 14th of September, not before that. Now if we put this condition, तो भले उसको 15 दिन पहले पैसा भरने दो, हम नहीं वो करने वाले. We had already clarified to him. So we have to find out these small things. We have to learn certain small things from these cases, because clients can, जब dispute हो जाता है ना, तो client can use this provision against us. Typically in essay tax, many times, say for example, पैसा भरना है, रिटर्न भी भरने का टेंशन रहता है. Of course अभी थोड़ा नहीं रहेगा. So we tell to client कि आप essay tax भर दो, essay tax के लिए पैसा डाल के रखो, जितना आता है हम पेमेंट करेंगे, बाकी पैसा रिटर्न करूंगा. Say client deposit 1 lakh rupees. Essay tax ultimately comes to 60,000. Now we telephone and tell him that 60,000 रुपया भर दिया, 40 बचा है आपका. Now client also says ठीक है, keep it, you pay December का advance tax payment के लिए आप use करो. Now let us take something in writing. Let us not be dependent on telephones of the client, because जब problem हो जाता है, then this will be this can be used by client against us. We are not allowed to use money of the clients at all unless it is being told by the client to use it for the specific purposes. So please remember that. The second important aspect here, because this is also client's asset, is a digital signature. I have seen cases where the clients have raised their hands कि मैं तो अनपढ़ हूं, मुझे मालूम ही नहीं है क्या है, उन्होंने डिजिटल सिग्नेचर मांगा, मैंने दे दिया. हम तो पूरा विश्वास रखते हैं इनके ऊपर, उन्होंने किधर यूज किया हमको थोड़ी मालूम है. Now friends, in such scenarios, chartered accountants were at sea. अब क्या करेंगे? Now unfortunately for chartered accountants, there was a proper communication with the client कि आप आपका डिजिटल सिग्नेचर भेज दो, हम आपके लिए रिटर्न फाइल करेंगे. Now it is to be, instructions have to be taken from the client. I have explained that under administrative services. The instructions have to be taken from client. The approval has to be taken from client, but we don't take it. We simply have a digital signature in our office. We file the return. So please see to it that the movement of digital signature is documented. this is a webinar, so I don't want to explain in detail. Correct? We are wise enough to understand that the movement of digital signature has to be documented, and the approval of the client has to be there on our hand, saying that I am approving this return or I am approving these submissions. Please file on my behalf. Right? I am sending my person with a digital signature. Please allow him to upload it, right, from your office using your infrastructure. Such kind of a documentation, if we are there, then there will not be any problem. Then there are certain cases I would like to discuss about the auditing aspects. I'm not touching upon the so-called hi-fi things. Let us understand the smaller things. Let us take one case where the partnership firm's tax audit was done by a chartered accountant. Now that partnership firm was having a tax case against them. Huge tax demand was there, but that was in progress. So he did not mention it. He signed that, this thing, and uploaded the tax audit and everything. On the basis of that balance sheet, they took a bank loan also. Now, after some years, a couple of years, that tax demand was materialized, and huge tax demand the firm had to pay, because of which the loan account became bad. Now, the bank filed case against the chartered accountant, saying that you have not made the disclosures at all. Now, friends, in the partnership firms, etc., non-corporate, corporate may be problem, but non-corporate may, chartered accountants are only feeling that they have to file a 3CD. 3CD agar upload ho gaya, hamara kaam ho gaya, jaan chuti. Now, friends, underlying accounts are also important, and our accounting standards are there for non-corporate entities also. Disclosure of significant accounting policies, contingent liabilities is equally applicable to the non-corporate clients, and we must disclose it. 3CB says that we have audited and it is true and fair. Now, the meaning of true and fair is that they are adhered to all these accounting standards, etc. And if it is not, then the qualification on that kind of a disclosure has to be there. So please appreciate that. The another case which I would like to tell regarding same partnership firm, right? One partnership firm, the outgoing partner, right? There was the one partner retired and the incoming partner, one more partner was admitted. There was a tripartite agreement between among the firm, the outgoing partner, and the incoming partner, saying that the incoming partner will take over the capital balance of the outgoing partner. He will discharge it from his money. For that purpose, he will give him his residential flat. Now that residential flat, the market value, there was one clause, if the market value of that residential flat is not sufficient to discharge that capital balance, then the remaining amount will be kept as loan in the firm. Let us take, for understanding purpose, the low capital balance was 40 lakhs. Now, the flat, this case also happened when I was on disciplinary bench. Now, we were knowing that chartered accountant pleaded that flat was given, which was more than 40 lakhs rupees. But the retiring partner filed a case against their partners as well as chartered accountant in an institute, saying that where is the amount mentioned, where is the market value. Now, there was only one indicator of market value on record, and that is the stamp duty valuation, and the stamp duty valuation was 25 lakhs. So that retiring partner said that 15 lakhs should have been shown in the balance sheet. How the chartered accountant has signed? Now, chartered accountant pleaded that, sir, फलाना फलाना एरिया में फ्लैट है, इतना है, आप किधर भी इंक्वायरी करो, 40 लाख क्या उससे ज्यादा अमाउंट रहेगी. Now, friends, रहेगी, yeah, it might be there, is not an explanation. Documentary evidence is something which we have to rely upon. Now, this could not be proved that the documentary evidence was accepted or obtained at that time. So chartered accountant was held guilty of misconduct of not disclosing the material facts or not taking the proper sufficient information. Many times we say that we have obtained the sufficient information or as per the information and explanation given. Now, what is an information here? There is no information at all. Right? There was only one information. Although practically we also knew that somebody said that yes sir, यहाँ पे तो इतना हो सकता है valuation. but हो सकता है के ऊपर one cannot decide the cases or one cannot do the audit also. So my suggestion to you that please obtain the proper documentary evidence for everything. Just because client बोल रहा है इतने साल का client है, let us not depend upon the client on all these scenarios. Now friends, moving around, I would like to discuss certain cases relating to certificates and reports, and we'll go on the certificates and reports. Now this case perhaps I might have discussed in Panvel, that there was a community trust. Now in that community trust, one chief trustee was there who was a very respectable person. He was an ex-army man. But there was other trustees were against him and they removed him, and they said that he has embezzled with the money, he has misutilized the money, right? He has not produced the vouchers. So they showed in the balance sheet the amount which is recoverable from that trustee, chief trustee. Now that audit was also done. The chief trustee was, since ex-army man, he prevailed upon certain people. ये गलत कहा है, मेरे से बराबर information नहीं ली है. So please hire somebody else, independent person to investigate that. So the trust appointed independent chartered accountant, other chartered accountant to investigate that matter, that how much is money recoverable from that chief trustee. Now that person verified that amount, and he said that okay, the vouchers are there, he has utilized that money for the purpose of trust only, so there is nothing recoverable from him. That's what his opinion was. What he did was, he prepared a fresh balance sheet and income and expenditure account. Whatever money was shown recoverable from him, he took an information or vouchers or proofs, and he debited that respective expenditure account, and whatever was recoverable from him was shown nil. So he recasted entire financial statements. He signed and gave it to the trust, saying that, see, this is the final scenario. Now friends, the trust filed case against this chartered accountant, saying that we had asked you to find out only the amount due from that trustee. You have signed our financial statements. Our clause very clearly says that if you sign the financial statements without verifying it, right, that is a misconduct. Now in this scenario, the chartered accountant unnecessarily, find out to usne kiya rahega, he could have given it in a separate format. Now, so therefore, in such scenario, which format has to be suggested or which format has to be adopted? There is a standard on related services which says that, which talks about the agreed upon procedures. So when you are given an assignment on agreed upon procedures, naturally you have to give the certificate or report in the format which has been prescribed in that standard. We'll come to that. So unnecessarily don't use the format of financial statements. It is not required from you. Then there can be number of such cases in this. I'll give you one more such case where the turnover certificate. Now one contractor came to a chartered accountant saying that my auditor is away, I have to fill up a PWD tender. Now that PWD tender demands, as requirement of that tender is, the turnover of the contractor has to be certified by chartered accountant. Now he produced to him last 2 years audited balance sheets, and previous year, I mean that audit of the last year, third year, was not concluded. So that year's entire trial balance, etc. आपको चाहिए तो मेरे accounts देख लो, tally accounts देख लो, no problem at all. Now this chartered accountant certified his turnover and gave it to him. This turnover certificate was filed by him with PWD. PWD observed somehow there was some complaint to PWD by third person saying that this person is fooling you. So PWD demanded their accounts and found that this turnover was not from a civil contract. He was doing two activities. One was a civil contract and one was a grocery business in a proprietor. He was a proprietor in two businesses. And this was a combined turnover. Now, chartered accountant PWD filed a case against this chartered accountant with the institute, saying that he is hand in glove and making a fraud on PWD for the purpose of capturing this tender. Now this chartered accountant pleaded in front of a disciplinary committee that I was not knowing, मैं क्या करूं, मुझे थोड़ी मालूम है, मुझे उसने खाली पूछा मुझे टर्नओवर सर्टिफिकेट चाहिए, मैंने दे दिया, मैंने ट्रायल balance dekh liya, and I have mentioned in my certificate last 2 years as per the audited balance sheet and third year's turnover as per the trial balance, as per the books of accounts. So this is the trial balance with me. I have done it as per trial balance. Now friends, I mean, apparently you may feel that there is no mistake from the chartered accountant, but our guidance note for the reports and certificates for specific purpose very clearly says that we must obtain the engagement letter from the client before we issue any such certificates and reports. In this engagement letter, it must be very clearly mentioned for what purpose this certificate is required. And if it is a tender, we must see to it that it is as per tender requirement or not, and we must issue the certificate only as per tender's requirement. I'll come to that. We are going towards that certificates and reports. First, I'm explaining the cases, and then we'll go upon that. There are a number of cases on certificates and reports. Now, friends, I'll tell you another case regarding certificates and reports. A chartered accountant was given an assignment by bank to check the end use of their loan, right? A machinery loan was granted, the fixed assets loan was granted to one of the businessmen, and chartered accountant was asked to check the end use and report to the bank. He verified all the original documents and he reported to the bank that the end use has been there. Now, friends, actually speaking, subsequently it was found that there was complete siphoning of money. Physically, the assets never came to the premises of the borrower, and it was complete fraud on the bank. The bank filed a case against this chartered accountant, saying that we had asked you to check the end use. Chartered accountant pleaded, मैंने तो invoices check कर लिए. Now, friends, when it is said that end use means actual use, right? One has to see that he has actually not only checked the invoices, but also physically those assets are there or not in existence. Because engagement letter say only talked about the end use, and he had anything in the mind कि end use का मतलब है कि मैंने खाली invoices check करने. He should have mentioned that in the report. Of course, that whether that would have been correct or not, that's again a different thing. But nothing was mentioned, nothing was clarified. So in that scenario, end use ka matlab hai actual end use. So physically also he was supposed to go and check. I know many of such cases might come to us, or we might be executing such things also. So friends, here also it was held guilty because he had not adhered to those principles of engagement letter, etc. Number two, another case very common to us, stock audit. Now, in case of a stock audit, although it may not be exactly relating to reports and certificates, but in case of a stock audit, in one case, there was a stock audit was given to chartered accountants. The majority of the stock, 90% of the stock was in work in progress. Now, this chartered accountant, work in progress could not be verified because it was in process. So he mentioned that in his stock audit report, we could not verify it because it is in process. So we have relied upon the document. Now, how you can rely? Forget it, right? Remove that relied upon. So we have not verified that. Now, at the end of that stock audit report, the drawing power has to be calculated. There, nothing was mentioned by the chartered accountant. Now, friends, the case was registered against this chartered accountant. Forget about, I'm not talking about disciplinary case. It is against the by criminal authorities, because there was complete siphoning by this person by this borrower under work in progress. Now, the chartered accountant pleaded that, "Arey, main kya kar sakta hu? Maine to diya hai." But you have certified the drawing power. Now, when you are doing something, you must do it in a holistic manner. Moreover, there is a guidance note on the stock audit. Now, in that guidance note, there is clear guidance and what is to be mentioned when the major stock is in work in progress. There is a clear-cut guidance. Unfortunately, friends, there is a lot of material available with the institute. Most of us, many of us, I am saying, I'm not charging anybody, I'm including myself also. Most of us don't know, most of us don't visit that. We are in so much of hurry to execute. Client ka sawal hai, usko chahiye, usko matlab execute karke dena hai jaldi. So we are in the certificates and reports also, we are basically many times using it so casually. Client are also treating it so casually. Phone pe bata dete, yaar ye certificate chahiye, aap bhej dena karke. और हम भी जैसे कि obliged है certificate and report बनाते हैं. And that is why I started speaking on this. I'll take some 35 to 40 minutes in this. Some 10 minutes I may go beyond the time, scheduled time of 12:30. So that is why I started speaking on this, and I realized that there are a lot of one can say that casualness amongst the chartered accountant. No, friends, let us understand. We all know what is report, what is certificate. I am not going in detail of that. Here, I would like to at sometimes ask you to look at the screen. So report, it's kind of based on facts and estimations, assumptions. We can give a disclosures, expression of opinion. Whereas certificate is basically confirmation of the accuracy of the facts, right? There is no opinion, there is no scope of suggestion, there is no scope of mentioning what I have relied upon, etc., etc., etc. So, what kind of an assurance is required? Many times the absolute assurance is required. The institute says that one should not give the absolute assurance. We are not the people to say that we are here to give an absolute assurance on the matter. The institute says that, but unfortunately, yes, many times it is the absolute assurance which is required. True and correct, meaning of true and correct, right? Now, engagement rates reducing to zero, it is not possible per se. But many times, unfortunately, statutorily, we are asked to give. Now, what is 15 CACB? What is the inward remittance certificate? Now, this is nothing but absolute assurance. But friends, except for that, I'll come to that, how we can tackle that. But what institute requires is we can give a reasonable assurance or we can give a limited assurance. Some theoretical part I'm discussing, if you can see the screen, because it is very important, friends, to understand in what perspective we are giving the report or certificate. Now, reasonable assurance means I'm saying that, correct? See, every time what I do is I verify certain things on the basis of certain information. So what I'm saying that the information which is being the certain certificate or certain details which have been prepared, it is correct in the material respect. It is as per this information which is provided. So as per this criteria, this statement has been prepared in all material respect. So I'm not saying 100% assurance. In all material respect, it seems to be properly prepared. Now, it is properly prepared in all material respect on the basis of this criteria. Say, for example, net worth certificate has to be prepared. Now, criteria is what? The assets and liability positions, the balance sheet. So, on the basis of that, the net worth certificate has been net worth statement has been prepared, properly prepared in all material respect. That one has to mention. One should not say that true and correct unless it is statutorily required. We'll see what can be the scenario or what can be the solution on that. So that is a reasonable assurance, and that is what is expected from a chartered accountant that institute expects us to provide. Now there is another level of assurance, that is a limited assurance. That is something which is much below that reasonable assurance. So where we are kind of giving a negative assurance. Negative assurance means nothing has come to our notice which would suggest that this statement has not been prepared as per the details provided. Right? Nothing has come to our notice which would suggest that this is not correct. That's what we are saying. So that's a limited assurance. That is the kind of a negative assurance we are giving. So institute expects us to give either reasonable assurance or limited assurance, but absolute assurance is intended many times by the regulatory authorities. What can be the approach? We'll see that. Now, the engagements, the assurance engagements or certification engagements can be of two types. One is the assertion-based engagement and direct reporting engagement. I'll explain that theoretical aspect, but thoda explain karta hu because very important. Assertion-based engagements means it is there in front of your screen, but that is a technical language which is being used. But the assertion-based engagements means what? Where the client prepares some things and gives to you to prepare a certificate on it. That is the underlying subject matter, right? Its measurement, evaluation, preparation has been done by client, and you have to only report on that. That is a assertion based engagement. The assertion has been made by client. Whereas the direct reporting engagements means client perhaps is not involved in that. You have to prepare that. So it is a directly, the chartered accountant directly performs the evaluation. Examples I have given on screen. The assertion based engagement can be the net worth certificate. That is, client is preparing a net worth statement, giving it to you and asking you to see that it is correct. Whereas end use certificate is nothing but the chartered accountant who is checking the end use, right? So this is my views. Of course, these are my views which I am expressing. Now, many times what happens that now naturally you will see that the assertion based engagements, the responsibility of preparing the statement is not on us. Naturally, we are not liable for preparation, whereas direct reporting engagements, all the responsibility is on us. Many times what we do is we convert assertion based engagement unnecessarily into direct reporting engagement. जैसे कि नेटवर्क सर्टिफिकेट देना है तो वी से दैट वी हैव कंपाइल्ड दिस डिटेल्स ऑफ नेटवर्क. जरूरत नहीं है हमको कंपाइल करने की. Compilation has to be done by client. We are simply reporting on that compilation. So my first request in this is, when we prepare certificates and reports, please see to it that this engagement may, whether it is an assertion based or direct reporting, don't convert the assertion based engagement जहां पे client ने statement बना के देना है into a direct reporting engagement. You are unnecessarily increasing your responsibility. Now the assurance engagements are basically where one is giving an assurance degree of confidence to the intended user, right? Now responsible party here means one client is there. There are three parties typically: client, chartered accountant, and intended user. There can be at times four parties also. That is, the appointing party can be different than the client, right? An intended user can be different. Say for example, if somebody is doing if anybody of you is doing a circulation or the newspaper or printing house audits, now there is something called as Audit Bureau of Circulation. This is an authority which is formed to certify, to see that the circulation figures of the publication houses is correct or not. And this data is used by the advertisers to fix the advertising rates of that publishing houses. Now here there are four parties. One is a client, that is a publishing house. Second is a chartered accountant, that who is being going to conduct. Third is an intended user, that is an advertiser. And fourth, or rather the first one, is an appointing party, that is that Audit Bureau of Circulation. They appoint chartered accountants to verify it. Correct? So that kind of an assurance engagement will be there. Now, independence requirement, whether it is there or not, required or not, I'll just briefly touch upon this. Friends, we feel that in certificates, independence is not important at all. Now, for your understanding or for information, there is a part 4B of code, volume 1 of Code of Ethics, which talks about independence requirements for assurance engagement other than audit and review engagement. So independence requirements are there for other than audit and review engagements also. So certificates also require that the chartered accountant should be independent. Now, independence can be of some important features of independence. I'm just highlighting two important features. The independence is required to be there for both the aspects, that is the subject matter information and party responsible for subject matter information. I'll explain you that. Say you are asked to give an opinion on the internal control processes, right? Give a certificate regarding the internal control process. Now, the client is a party, client's internal control is a subject matter information. But the internal controls might have been suggested or implemented by an independent party. Say for example, another example is an environmental issue. Now, environmental client's product or client's manufacturing process is a subject matter information. Whereas the environmental specialists who have advised or who are given a kind of a processes for environmental protection are the party responsible for subject matter information. तो यहाँ पे दो authorities हैं. Now we must be independent of both, that is client also and the person who has implemented the internal control system. So one should not be related to that. So हमारी sister concern or sister firm है, right? A network firm is doing an internal control implementation and we are testing it. Now that should not be done, right? So independence should be for both. Next is independence for both the periods, that is the period covered by the subject matter information and the period of engagement. I'll give you an example. Turnover certificate has to be issued, say, for 2021. Now assignment is given to you, right? Or a provisional balance sheet has to be certified. The assignment has to be given. How it is to be done, we'll see that. Assignment is to be given to you, say for example on 15th of May. Reporting is done on 31st of May. Now the engagement period is 15th May to 31st May. The period covered by subject matter information is 1st April 20 to 31st March 21. Naturally, your independence has to be from 1st April 20 to 31st May 21. You should not be having any such kind of a relationship with the client. So there has to be proper independence. The nitty-gritties of independence requirement, I am not going in detail. You can refer to 4B, part 4B of volume 1. Certain aspects are mentioned in the screen, but I am not discussing it. It is completely self-explanatory. Going further, friends, on your screen you can see that there are certain publications of the institute. That is standards. I mean, what standards and what guidance note you can use. Standards on assurance engagement 3400, that is regarding the prospective financial information. 3402 regarding the reports on the controls at service organization. 3420 regarding the prospectus. There are standards on related services which are not assurance engagement. SRS 4400 regarding agreed upon procedures. SRS 4410 regarding compilation engagements. Now, in addition to that, there is a guidance note on reports and certificates for special purposes. Now, friends, I'm not going to tackle all of this. Typically, what we encounter only I'll tackle today, because otherwise it's a more of a theoretical session, because service level organization शायद हमारे में से एक आध दो जन करते रहेंगे, तो otherwise most of us may not be doing it. So let us discuss about the project report or the prospective financial information. Many times the client approaches us saying that I want to get my project report, bank वाले project report के ऊपर signature मांग रहे हैं. Now whether I can sign, definitely not. There is a clause 3 of part 1 of the second schedule which clearly prohibits us from signing any prospective financial information, so that as if we are vouching for the accuracy of the same. We are not allowed to do that. Then what should be done? Now this standards on assurance engagements allows us to give a certificate or report on examination of prospective financial information. Now what does this standard talks about? Now these standards, now there are typical precautions which have to be taken in this. What is the intended use of information? Why this is prepared? What are the assumptions in that? Whether this is a best estimates assumptions or hypothetical assumptions. Now best estimate assumption means these assumptions have been made as per some estimates. Some history is there, some kind of an evidence is there, right? Industry norms hai, या company का पहला track record है, या तो फिर expertise or some kind of a market research is there. Now these are the best estimates assumptions. Now there you have an evidence in hand. Certain assumptions will be hypothetical assumptions, मतलब there is no base to it. It is just thought process, just thinking किया है, right? ऐसा होगा, global scenario ऐसा होगा, export में such kind of a things will be there. Now that is a hypothetical assumption. One must clearly understand whether the estimates are the assumptions are best estimates assumptions or hypothetical assumptions. Why, we will see. Then we have to report accordingly. Now, what is the source of evidence, whether the evidence has been collected from the reliable source or not. If a hypothetical assumptions are used, now what are the implications if these assumptions are not going to be materialized, right? Whether the management is competent or not for preparing this prospective financial information. I know that many times the project report preparation भी आपके ऊपर और हमारे ऊपर ही रहता है. But friends, management की compatibility, when we are also certifying that, we must understand, right? What is the stability of the entity's business, what is the period covered, etc., etc. Now, what is the calculation, whether the proper calculations have been done or not, that is the proper techniques have been used or not. So all these things we must take into consideration, and we must prepare this report. Now this, I'm just discussing the illustrative format which is being discussed in this standard. Now the format again says that it starts with the information that we have examined the projections of so and so, right, on the basis of the assumptions which have been given from so and so to so and so in the prospective financial information. Now, if you see the next paragraph, it is very clearly mentioned that the preparation and presentation of projections, including the underlying assumptions which have been mentioned in notes. So assumptions have to be mentioned in notes in the project report, right? Now we are casting the entire responsibility on the management. So preparation and presentation of the prospect projections, including underlying assumptions, is a responsibility of the management. Friends, even if you are preparing this project report, better and always advisable to cast this responsibility on management. Please don't take the responsibility. It's not a direct reporting engagement. It's a assertion based engagement. Preparation is their responsibility. Correct? Now, what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to examine the supporting assumptions, excluding hypothetical assumptions. अगर ये hypothetical assumption है, हम उसमें कुछ examine नहीं कर पाएंगे और नहीं कर रहे. Correct? So we are examining the assumptions which are best estimates assumptions and other information which is given. Our responsibility does not include the verification of the projections, and therefore we are not vouching for the accuracy of the same. So we are giving the disclaimer in the beginning only. We are not vouching for the accuracy of the same. We must be very clear in that. So what we are verifying first is the best estimate assumptions. Uske evidence kya hai? Evidence are reasonable or not. Going further, we must mention ये जो red में लिखा हुआ है, if you are going to see you are watching the presentation, that is the commentary by me. So intended use, why these projections are prepared, whether it is for the bankers for getting a loan, whether it is for filling up a tender, or whether it is for a pre-qualification for any such kind of a thing, or whether it is kind for the purpose of making some kind of a one can say presentations, right? So that one has to be very clear in this scenario. Then we have discussed in first paragraph that we are verifying only their best estimate assumptions, or its evidence we are verifying. We are not verifying that assumptions are correct or not. We are saying that whether the assumptions, whether the evidence on the basis of which the best estimate assumptions have been made are reasonable or not. We are only verifying that. Number two, as I said, there can be hypothetical assumptions. So if it's in hypothetical assumptions, right, we must mention that it is the projections have been based on the hypothetical assumptions, and management action may not necessarily expect it to occur. It is not going to occur. We are not saying that, we are not vouching for it. We are not saying that management action as mentioned will occur or not. We are saying that it may not occur, right? And so projections may not be appropriate for the purposes other than mentioned above. So ये projection और किधर भी use नहीं कर सकता है client. Next, now if it's in hypothetical assumptions, we have carried out examination on test basis, right? We have done the examination of evidence which is supporting the assumptions, as I mentioned, and nothing has come to our notice. Now, this is a limited assurance which I am giving, which causes us to believe that these assumptions do not provide the reasonable basis for projections. But if it's a hypothetical assumptions, we have to again mention that assuming that these hypothetical assumptions are materialized. So nothing has come to our notice to give any evidence, right, which will give that these projections have not been done on the reasonable basis, right? So only on evidence we are commenting. Evidence is reasonable, and therefore nothing has come to our mind or notice which make us to believe that the assumptions do not provide the reasonable basis of projections. So here what we are saying that assumptions provide a reasonable basis for projections. हम यहाँ कह नहीं रहे कि assumptions correct है, हम यहाँ कह नहीं रहे कि projections correct है, correct? ये assumptions reasonable basis दे रहा है projections करने के लिए. Or if it's a hypothetical assumptions, we also mentioning that assuming that this will materialize. So our responsibility is completely reduced here. Second aspect which we are verifying is the calculation. So on the basis of our verification, we are saying that in our opinion, it has been properly prepared on the basis of assumptions. So here what we are saying is the calculations have been done correctly. Correct? Only two things we are verifying and giving our opinion on that, and that too a limited assurance. At the end, again a third disclaimer we are giving. That is, what is that disclaimer? Even if the hypothetical assumptions materialize, right? Hypothetical assumptions may be correct, right? According to that, it may occur also in future, but still the ultimate result may be significantly different because there can be different kinds of events which are occurring. I'll give an example here why this disclaimer has to be given. Say for example, project report prepare करते समय hypothetical assumptions है कि 50, 60 और 70% capacity पे factory चलेगी. Now that's a reasonable assumption, although it's a hypothetical assumption. So accordingly 50, 60, 70% के ऊपर factory चल भी सकती है, no problem. But still ultimate result may be different. उतना production नहीं आएगा because there can be other events which are occurring. Say for example, materially substandard quality का आ गया. या तो labor, we could not get a proper labor which is using that 50, that utilizing that capacity. Or even if the production is there, suppose material labor ठीक है, production भी आ गया, फिर भी sale नहीं हो सकता है. Suppose pandemic है, flood है, so sale is being affected. So what I am saying is this disclaimer again clearly says that even if the hypothetical assumptions occur और उसके जैसे result आ भी जाते हैं, तो भी ultimate result will be different. So there are disclaimer after disclaimer in this. There is a limited assurance in this, and there are only two things which we are certifying. That is evidence for making a best estimate assumption. That assumptions are giving a fair or reasonable basis for making the projections, assuming that the result from hypothetical assumptions will be achieved. And number two is the calculation. It has been properly prepared as per the assumptions. कहीं पे भी हम ये correct है करके नहीं बोल रहे हैं. So please remember that and develop your certificate accordingly. Going further, friends, agreed upon procedures SRS 4400. I have already explained this when I discussed the case regarding the trust. Whenever you have been given a specific job, I'm not discussing the contents here because again it will take a lot of time and it will be more of a theoretical in nature. But whenever you are given a job to do a certain specific task, say a debtors reconciliation or a stock verification. Now some banks also give assignment regarding the verification of suspense accounts. Now in this scenario, very simple, आपको ही report develop करना है, right? Now what this standard says that lay down the criteria. I'm just taking you through this report. See, if you see here, lay down the criteria, right? What are the criteria on the basis of which you have checked? See, if you see 1, 2, 3, the criteria has been mentioned. This is the typical agreed upon procedure report for finding the account receivable or reconciliation of account receivable. Now, how I am confirming that? Trial balance, confirmation, list of major customers, so on and so forth. And on each criteria, subsequently in paragraph 4, I am reporting. With respect to trial balance, right, I have verified the accounting entries. With respect to the reconciliations, I have seen that this prospective or the subsequent write-offs are not there. With respect to the confirmations, I have seen that the confirmations are there. So on the each criteria you have to report, and you must mention one important thing here is each kind of an assignment criteria will be different, and each criteria your reporting has to be there. But important is that we must very clearly mention that this procedure is not constituting the audit or review, right? So we are not made up, review made in accordance with the generally accepted accounting standards in India. So we are not expressing any audit assurance on the accounting of it. So there is no assurance given. If we have performed the processes in an audit or review, right? As we do audit or review, the results might be different, right? That must very clearly be mentioned in our this kind of a report. So I have cited that case of a trust to you. The chartered accountant first of all made a mistake in recasting the financial statements. Secondly, he did not mention that this is not an audit or review which has been conducted, right? So both the things are important. Form also is important, and this disclaimer or declaration also is important in agreed upon procedures. Many such assignments we receive from the clients, right? So please adhere to this SRS 44100. The next SRS is SRS 4410 compilation agreement. Now here the practitioner is given, or chartered accountant is given, a responsibility for preparation and presentation of historical financial information. This is not an assurance engagement. You are not assuring that this is correct or this is as per so and so, but certainly the responsibility is to prepare as per the accounting framework, that is the standards or Ind AS or IFRS or whatever it may be. Very some month back, we have received an assignment of converting the US GAAP accounts into the Indian GAAP. It was not audit and assurance. So that is a kind of a compilation engagement, right? US GAAP to Indian GAAP, you are simply compiling it, you are not auditing it. So in this compilation engagements, we have to stick to this SRS 4410. Now some people say that whenever the certification regarding unaudited financial statements is asked, you can prepare a certificate as per this compilation engagements. I mean, my view is slightly different, with the due respect to those people, that compilation engagements asked you to prepare a compilation, right, and give a compilation to management, not third party. It is not an assurance engagement, right? Whereas when the bankers asked for the unaudited financial statement, they asked some kind of an assurance from you. So this is not an assurance engagement. I've explained to you, I've given an example to you that US GAAP accounting, that US GAAP financial statements have to be converted into Indian GAAP. Now that's a compilation engagement. So in my view, one should not prepare the report as per the compilation engagements whenever the unaudited financial statements are asked by the bankers. I mean, views can be different. As I said, this is my view, correct? If you see that, if you are able to see the clause, why I'm saying is that clause G on your screen, you say that a description of the practitioner's responsibilities in compiling the financial engagement performed in accordance with this, right? Now, here we have to prepare it. Why to take the additional responsibility of preparation? That is my view. And therefore, I feel that no need of taking the additional responsibility of preparation when we certify the unaudited financial statement. Now, what is to be certified in that? I'll come to that. So that is why this compilation engagement need not be taken, correct, as far as these unaudited balance sheets are concerned. Now, going further, friends, now we'll go to the guidance note. Guidance note for reports and certificates for special purposes. This is the last leg of my presentation. I will be taking around 15 minutes here. Now, friends, guidance note says that it gives a guidance where these standards are not applicable. So general purpose certificates and reports, this guidance note is applicable. Now, these report certificates can be of three types according to me, which are actually specified under law. So format is specified under law. Law, I'm talking about format is specified by law and not regulators. Regulators can specifically format just unko lagta hai isliye specify kiya. I'll come to that. Authorities or regulators. Now, formats is specified in law, so you cannot change that. That is income tax, typical formats are to be given. RBI Act, FEMA related, or remittance certificates or customs or RERA. The formats are specified. Now here you cannot amend that. What is the solution? I will discuss later on. Most of the cases, absolute assurance is required in this. Now again a problem. Institute does not allow us to do that, or does not expect us to do that. Here you cannot change the format. Here you cannot add that, mention that what documents you have relied upon, etc., etc. So how to prepare? We'll come to that. The second type is the reports and certificates required by statutory or other authorities. Law में नहीं दिया रहता है, but वो authorities बोलते हैं. Say for example railways, कहीं पे भी law में नहीं कहा है. MIDC, law में नहीं कहा है, but उनको कहना है कि ये certificate आप ऐसा बना के दे दो. Right? Sugar commissioner, sugar crushing reports ऐसे होने चाहिए. कहीं पे भी law में नहीं कहा है. But उनका फॉर्मेट रहता है, यूजीसी का फॉर्मेट रहता है. Now here friends, my experience is that we can amend the format. I had an experience of sugar commissioner where sugar commissioner requires a crushing report. पहले तो मैनेजमेंट से लेता है और फिर हमारे से लेता है on the same page on the letterhead of the company. We have denied that we cannot give it on the letterhead of the company. We had asked management to mention there that the auditor's certificate is separately attached, and we gave a certificate in our format. It was accepted by them. Correct? So here the formats can be amended, formats can be fitted into our guidance note. Correct? But still, if somebody is not accepting, then what to do? We'll come to that. Now, what is the assurance level? To my mind, here reasonable assurance can be done and they will accept it. Absolute assurance may not be required there, although they might say there, but we need not give, and still unko farak nahi padta hai. That is required to be kept in their record. Correct? It is better to mention what documents you have relied upon in this scenario in the certificates. We'll come to that, how to do that. Then the third category is a completely general purpose certificates. Now bankers required, for a tender purpose it is required. So unaudited accounts, ITR forms, net worth certificate, turnover certificate. Now here typically definitely we can prepare the formats as per our guidance note. There can be no problem at all. No need of giving absolute assurance. As far as possible, give reasonable or limited assurance. Supporting documents must be better to mention it. Detailed processes also you can mention in this thing, and proper disclaimer also has to be given. Let us start with what is requirement. Now this guidance note requires that certain things must be mentioned in the report. One is engagement letter, and I have explained you the case where because the engagement letter was not there, the chartered accountant was held guilty of misconduct. So engagement letter has to be there, understanding of proper engagement and documentation, understanding of subject matters, roles and responsibility of client and chartered accountant has to be specified very clearly, right? Assurance level, one has to be very clearly understanding that what assurance is required, what is the limitation of engagement, what's the professional skepticism, professional judgment and skills are there or not. So you have to apply that. Materiality principles have to be laid down. Right? Many times we don't look into many of these aspects, but our guidance note is specifying that evidence has to be obtained, written submissions have to be obtained, right? At times, the opinion also can be taken of the experts. How you have to rely upon, that's a different thing, right? Now, what are the contents? Therefore, the titles, the engagement letter, inherent limitations of the engagement have to be mentioned. Responsibilities of the engaging party, clients, etc. Responsibility of the practitioner, the statement that the engagement has been performed as per the guidance note, the statement that the ethical code of ethics have been complied. See, this is a mandatory, friends. This is a guidance note which is mandatory on us. We have to give certificate as per this. If it is not there, unfortunately, if any case is filed against us, however correct we may be, technical ground, we are not adhering to the guidance note, it can go against us, right? And then comes the practitioner's information and the restrictions on use must be there. Now, in this backdrop, let us discuss some certificates and then we will conclude. Now, this certificate is also given in the guidance note. This is a kind of a general purpose certificate. Here, I mean, all 3-4 types of certificates are given together: turnover, net worth, net profit, working capital, all 4. Now, what does this say? I have underlined certain aspects for a better understanding or the focused understanding. What does this say? First clause talks about the engagement letter. Now, here, turnover or net worth certificate is issued for the tender requirement. I am just taking it for the purpose of discussion. If it is not tender requirement, then that clause you can delete, or you cannot mention, you need not mention that clause. So first is an engagement letter. Why it is, I have been mentioned as per this thing, I have taken up this assignment. Number 2, as per tender requirement. So you have to see that the accompanying statement of turnover is as required. So this is again a assertion based engagement. You are not preparing a turnover certificate. It has been given by the client and it is prepared as per the tender requirement. And for that purpose, you must see the tender also and attach the tender, mentioning there that I am attaching the tenders and initialing that for identification purpose, ताकि वो और किधर use नहीं हो पाए certificate, right? We have to take care about our certifications, friend. So here I am certifying that tender for identification purpose, and I am saying that this statement which client has prepared is as required under tender. Going further, what is the management responsibility? Now, management responsibility is to prepare this prepare this information as per tender documents. So, design, implementation, internal controls for the purpose of preparing this is entire responsibility of the management, right? Adherence to the tender document is entire responsibility of the management. It is not my responsibility. So, जो turnover certificate हम दे रहे हैं, whether that turnover accounting has been proper or not, it is not my responsibility, right? We have to clearly identify the responsibility of the management. And my suggestion, humble suggestion to you, put it as much as possible in this. Don't take any responsibility on you. Then, what is my responsibility? What is the practitioner's responsibility? Now, practitioner's responsibility is that whether this turnover has been actually extracted correctly from the audited financial statements or not. Now, it may so happen that for 2 years, 3 साल का turnover certificate देना है और 2 साल का audited financial statements में है, 1 साल का नहीं है. Then, on what basis that has been taken? Typically on the basis of GST returns, then mention it here. So our responsibility is to see that this turnover has been extracted for these 2 years on the basis of audited financial statements, and for this year on the basis of the GST returns filed by the client. Here, again, you have to mention that we are not responsible for the authenticity or the correctness of GST returns. Don't take responsibility of GST returns on you. You may be otherwise filing, but don't take in this certificate that responsibility. Otherwise, you are converting that, again, assertion based engagement into direct reporting engagement. No need of doing that, right? even the current assets, current liabilities, or working capital, if you are going to define, then you are doing it for 2 years as per audited financial statement. For third year, it is not an audited financial statement, so you are simply extracting from the books of account. Again, don't take responsibility for the maintenance of books of account or genuinity or genuineness of the books of account. Mention it there already in the management responsibility. Correct? So cast responsibility on the management and clearly mention in your responsibility that you are not responsible for such things. Going further, friends, if it is on the audited financial statements, and if you have audited the financial statements, then you mention that we have conducted the audit as per so and so. If you have not conducted the audit, you mention that we have not conducted the audit, and so chartered accountants have conducted the audit and we have relied upon that. Correct? Then next two clauses are very important. It has to be there that we are adhered to this guidance note, and we are adhered to the what you can say that the principles of code of ethics which have been casted upon us. And then you must go to the opinion that this has been properly extracted in all material respects. Again, a reasonable assurance I am giving from the audited books of accounts for so and so year, or from the GST return for so and so year. Very clearly we have to mention from where, on what criteria we are checking. It is always mentioned that there is an opinion and there is a criteria. Criteria means what? Audited financial statement, GST returns, the accounts maintained in the books of accounts, and so on and so forth. So we must maintain both, right? We must say that it is correct in the material respect, right? With respect to this audited financial statement, with respect to this GST return, with respect to the accounting records maintained by the client. Correct? So that has to be very clearly mentioned. And at the end, restriction on use has to be put, that this has been asked from us for the purpose of submission to the bankers, or submission to whatever authorities for whatever purpose, tender requirement, or so on and so forth. So it cannot be used by the client at any other place. I'm going to discuss two more formats, friend, in next 5-7 minutes, and we'll conclude. Now these formats, mind you, are not prescribed by the institute. It is nowhere mentioned. These are the formats which are derived or which are prepared by our office for our office purpose, correct, for submission to the respective authorities as required by clients. So please remember that this format is typically when unaudited financial statement. Last year, when the moratorium was announced by the government, the bankers wanted the projected or unaudited financial statement for the financial year 1920. Our audit was not at all completed. It was not started also in last June, July, etc. So we had given a certificate, and that time we had developed this certificate on the basis of the guidance note. We have developed it on the basis of the guidance note, but it is not as prescribed by the institute. The format, again I am repeating because there can be misunderstanding. Till now, we have discussed the format given by the institute in the respective guidance note or standards. This is the format developed by us on the basis of the guidance note. So I am just taking it for the discussion purpose. If you want, I can circulate it separately to you, not with this presentation. जब ये presentation मैं circulate करूँगा, presentation से ये format निकाले जाएंगे. Because if I circulate it with presentation, people might feel that this also is being given by the institute. If you want, I will separately circulate to you with my disclaimers in that. Now, friends, we have developed this, but you can also develop such format from in your office. Now, what we have developed is for these unaudited financial statements, what we have mentioned. Now, this is my appeal to you or my suggestion to you. We are asked different kinds of certificates and reports. Now, how to develop the format? For that purpose, let us ask the question to ourselves. Why these formats are required? Now, bank जब unaudited financial statements मांगते हैं signed by chartered accountant, बैंक क्यों मांगते हैं? Audited मांगेंगे तो बैंक chartered accountant का signature आएगा ना? So certainly bank also knows that this is not audited. So then why chartered accountant signature is required? To my mind, when I ask this question to myself, I find the answer that bank wants a limited assurance from you that these statements, financial statements, have been prepared as per the underlying books of account. Prima facie prepared. करेक्ट है कि नहीं है, डेप्रिसिएशन बराबर रेट से दिया है नहीं दिया है, आउटस्टैंडिंग की प्रोविजन की है नहीं की, ये सब नहीं मालूम है, एंड बैंक आल्सो नोज इट. सो prima facie whether these have been compiled from the books of account. Typically the books of account है कि नहीं है underlying, that is what banks want perhaps, and therefore we have developed this. हमने सबमिट भी किए बैंक में, सब जगह एक्सेप्ट भी हुए ये सर्टिफिकेट्स एंड रिपोर्ट्स. Here I am mentioning report and not certificate. Caption of the report is the independent practitioner report on prima facie compilation of unaudited financial statements for the year so and so so and so. Right? I am saying prima facie compilation. Now in that again I am going through this guidance as per guidance note. Report is as per the engagement letter. Clear cut engagement letter is there on record. Accompanying finance. Now this is the assertion by the client. Now what is the assertion by the client? The accompanying financial statements, balance sheet, so and so so and so has been compiled by the client, right, on the basis of the accounting data extracted by them from their computer software or accounting software on the date of this report, right? And for that purpose, what proof I have in hand? The trial balance of which has been submitted to us as certified by them. तो मेरे पास अगर tally data है तो no problem, you can mention that the data backup of which has been submitted to them by them. But मैं ये क्यों नहीं रखा है मैंने? Because आगे जाके अगर मुझे डिफेंड करना है कहीं पे, मेरे सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स क्या है, टैली डेटा तब तक मेरे पास सॉफ्ट कॉपी रहेगी नहीं रहेगी, और सॉफ्ट कॉपी में कैसे प्रोड्यूस करूं, राइट? So for that purpose, but if you can just do that and keep preserve it in the pen drive, nothing like it. Next, it is very clear cut indication we have not audited the accompanying financial statements. However, we have affixed, because bank मांगती है कि इसके ऊपर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट का इनिशियल चाहिए. We have affixed our initials and seal on it for identification purpose, ताकि ये with this certificate and report the client should not attach anything else, any other financial statement. That's why we are affixed. We are not audited it. Then what is the management responsibility? Just as I said, put as much responsibility on management as possible so that you are not responsible. Accompanying financial statement including preparation and so is completely preparation, maintenance of all books of accounts, underlying books of accounts, other records, supporting contents is solely responsibility of the management. Management is also responsible that it complies with the company law regulations or any other regulations, accounting principles, procedures, legal regulations, etc. हम किसी के लिए responsible नहीं है. Then what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to report whether these financial statements have been prima facie compiled from the books of account maintained by the company in their accounting software on the given date. We have neither conducted audit nor review, right? And as such, we are not reporting on the authenticity of the books of account, correct? The responsibility to the report on the financial statements as regards adherence to legal requirement, etc., true and fair view is not on us. So we are saying that therefore the financial statements after conduct of audit may significantly differ as compared to the current financial statement, the attached financial statements, correct? Then we have to say mention that clause, the mandatory clause that we have gone as per the guidance note and the ethical principles and SQC1 शायद इसमें रह गया था. So we have done all this compliance with this for guidance note format. And then we come to opinion. In the opinion also, if you see I am giving a reasonable opinion, you can also give a limited assurance here. Reasonable assurance is given based on our examination as above. We report that the attached financial statements have been prima facie compiled in all material respect from the books of account maintained by the company in the accounting software on the given date. Very many times we simply sign that verified and found correct as per the accounting report given to us. But here responsibility किसकी है accounting रखने के लिए? Whether we are seeing that the genuinity of books of account ये नहीं mention कर रहे, and that is why detailed report as per guidance note has to be given. At the end, the restriction on use also is given so that they are not submitting it anywhere else. Lastly, I'm just taking this format. This is again a much required format, but this is again prepared by our office. It is not prescribed by institute per se. We have developed it as per the guidance note. And this format is regarding the verification of ITRB or ITR acknowledgements. Now, friends, we had given this. It was accepted by the bankers also. No queries. And many of my friends had asked, I had given them. There also it has been accepted. No problem at all in this. So here what I'm saying, again I'm asking to myself that ITR का verification bank कहने को कहती है मतलब क्या है? Whether banks want to say that the contents are genuine, I can't give that. I'm not auditing or I'm not saying assurance function here. So what banks want? Perhaps banks only want from me that this return or this kind of this copy of the return which is being submitted to them has been uploaded or has been filed with the income tax. So itna hi dena hai na mujhe. So what I can give, I can mention here again, engagement letter पहले आ गया. Then what I'm mentioning here, the accompanying copies of income tax return forms for the assessment year so and so have been downloaded by the client in front of us using the login ID of so and so from the income tax website so and so www so and so. The computation of income return so and so also have been prepared by the assessee from the downloaded return forms, according to which the gross total income of the assessee is so and so. Why it is being mentioned? That for the purpose of creation of URIN, you want some figures, right? So gross total income I'm including here. Further, the accompanying income and expenditure. Now, income profit.
Mr. Jamal, is there any problem?
Income and expenditure भी ये करना था. It was a professional expenditure and balance sheet of so and so, right? Signed by us. So वहीं से
I think there is some connection problem from sir's end.
Okay.
Let us wait. I think some connection problem.
Yes.
such assurance. We are saying that this report has been prepared as per guidance note, and in our opinion, we are making. Yeah, you are able to listen to me?
Sir, still there is some problem.
Listen to me?
Yeah, we can listen. We can hear you, sir, but it is not very clear.
Let us wait again. I think we are joining again.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm just concluding, in fact. So this report, we are putting a restriction to use, and this returns or certified returns cannot be used anywhere. So friends, I'm just concluding. Third certificate was there, but I'm not discussing that. This was a certificate given for the service tax authorities for the bifurcation of turnover of the client. But as I said, I'm not discussing that because of want of time, and there can be number of such certificates. Now, friends, why the entire purpose of this is that at times we are giving the certificates very casually, and therefore let us increase our value. Let us not take unnecessary responsibilities in this. Let us limit our responsibility. At the same time, increase our value. And also, if we start taking so much of efforts, we will slowly and steadily able to charge the client also. I know that at times we are giving the certificates completely free of cost. Let us not do that. Show the client that this much efforts are required, UDIN is required now, and therefore we'll be able to charge also. As far as ethics are concerned, I'm always saying that whenever there is a conflict between heart and brain, follow your heart, because your brain might suggest you certain ways and means, but heart will always tell you what is correct. So with this, I think I'm done with my subject. Sorry for taking some 15 minutes more. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope I'm able to give justice to the subject which was allotted to me. Any queries in this regard, I'm open for discussion. Right. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mangesh sir. Amol, I think you can take a question answer session. So I think before taking the general question, if any one of the panelists wants to ask any question, you can continue. Like
I think
Sanjay Nikam sir or
Pratik has some
Vinmay
question.
sir, Anand ji. Anybody has question, just ask first that, then we'll complete that, then we'll go to the other questions.
Pratik has some questions, I think.
Yes, Pratik.
Yes, sir. So I was asking about the concept of virtual CFO and whether a practicing CA can take such a role.
There is a ethical standard board decision that virtual CFO per se cannot be done. This activity cannot be done by chartered accountants, because what happens is, virtual CFO means you are involved in the activities of the company. As a practicing chartered accountant, virtually you are engaged in doing that business activity, and that would not be allowed to you.
Okay.
Yeah, anything else?
Another question what I had about was the what solution.
Yeah, tell me. I lost.
Pratik, you are not audible.
I'll read that question, shall I?
Yes, yes,
Sure,
you
sir.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, what solution would you suggest for chartered accountants who have to keep DSC offline for using them for taxation compliance?
Recording chalu hai na? What I would suggest that on the record, we are not supposed to hold any DSCs in our office. Better, always better, right? For a period for which we are not using it, not used in our office. Now, what does that mean? That means that we should have a proper documentation in our hand, which would suggest that this DSC has come to us from the client with the client's person for the use in our office, After use, it has gone to the client with his person. Documentation minimum अपने पास होना चाहिए. Now I hope I am clear on this. I can't recorded session है, मैं बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं बोल सकता हूँ. But we must have a proper documentation with us, where we will be having a satisfaction, or we will be able to prove that I am not using the DSC on my own.
Okay.
I think Pratik has one more question. In case of certain private banks, they ask for certifying of business information. I think this is covered.
They ask for this certification, like the client is not undertaking terrorist and other illegal activities. So what should we do about it?
See, to my mind, I mean, in this regard, of course, there is a representation given by the institute also to IBA, and such certificate definitely we cannot give, right? And we should not give. Collectively, it is being represented also, according to me, that such kind of things we will not be able to give. But there are certain things which we can perhaps give in a different format. I was just discussing yesterday, somebody from one branch, there was a query. है ना, 1-2 मिनट ले लूँ ना इसके ऊपर?
Yes, yes, sir.
There was a query from one of the member to me that railway is allotting a tender to the civil contractors, and for that purpose they wanted an undertaking from them that they will be using the Make in India, the vendors, they will be using the material as per the Make in India concept only, and for that they wanted a CA certificate. Now, how can a CA certify? And if that CA certificate is not given, then the tender, they are disqualified from applying for tender. Now, certify that the client is going to purchase it in future as per Make in India concept. Now, what solution we found out, because otherwise the tender he would have been disqualified. What solution we have found out from this is that certainly I have to ask why the tender, why the railway wants, again ask the question to you, why railway wants a certificate from the chartered accountant? Does that mean that chartered accountant is an astrologer saying that kahan se wo purchase karne wala hai aage? No, definitely not. Then what? Then perhaps we find out the solution there, that the client can prepare a statement very clearly saying that I am going to purchase from such and such party in future. Now, this party is located at this place, this party is having such and such GST number, PAN number, and therefore it is as per Make in India concept. Now here, chartered accountant can that as per the GST registration or PAN registration, you can verify it from the database or the record, and on that basis, these vendors are located at this place. The address given is correct. I am not saying whether he is going to buy from them. That is, as I said, in the responsibility of the management and our responsibility, we can curtail our responsibility completely. We are not saying that he is going to buy from that. We are not saying that it is as per complying the norms or not. What we are saying is that the vendors which he has mentioned, as per the GST registration, their address confirmed by him is correct. Now, that kind of a thing we can try and develop. I don't know what happened ultimately, that very recently only we have given, but that chartered accountant was satisfied and he said that, yes, I think we will be able to do that. What you mentioned, definitely we cannot give terrorist activity and all. We can say that this is registered for this activity. We can mention the factual information. Right, from a GST registration, he has been registered for this activity. Only that can be mentioned, according to me. And that there is nothing wrong in that. There is nothing wrong in it.
So can I ask one question?
But I think in this regard, the present representation has gone to the IBA that such certificate should not be asked.
So one question. there is always a tussle between the absolute assurance and reasonable assurance.
Yeah.
The stakeholders normally seek for the absolute assurance, whereas there are situations where we can't give the absolute assurance.
Extremely sorry. I mentioned that I'll be mentioning that. See, there is a paragraph 32A of guidance note on reports and certificates for specific purpose. I'm sorry, I mean, some of us might have left. Now, that paragraph says that whenever absolute assurance is required, you prepare a certificate as per guidance note, giving a reasonable assurance, submit it in that format with a reasonable assurance to the client, let client submit it to that authority, let authority read and take a letter from the client that authority has rejected that, and then you can prepare the certificate as required by them in an absolute assurance. Submit it to the client saying that I am giving it because the authority has rejected. Actually, my certificate should have been like this. So for the purpose of client, they can submit it the certificate as the authority wants. But for your record and the client's record, you will always maintain that this certificate is being prepared as per this guidance note. Correct? Now, that 32A para says that even if in past the authority has rejected, so once rejection is sufficient for us to have it on our record, right? So that is a via media which has been devised by this guidance note.
Sir, normally a certificate rejection we doesn't get it officially. Only client comes and says, sir, ये certificate तो चल नहीं रहा, आप उनको अपनी format में चाहिए. So how we can keep the record?
There perhaps we can rely on that, and we can prepare a certificate, our certificate, their certificate, also both the format, and give it to him.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think CA Dhanesh Shah has some questions. I have unmuted him.
I am not able to see you. Why it is so? I don't know.
So you can't see us?
Sir, just select gallery view.
Gallery view. कहाँ पे आता है?
Gallery view. Now you can see.
Sir, आपके
audience view आ रहा है, but वो selected है.
View everyone. Just select view everyone.
View everyone.
First window.
First.
But view में जाके कहाँ पे जाके?
आपका full screen view है क्या sir? You are viewing full screen? Then एक बार escape कर लो, फिर आपको you will have a toolbar on top of the screen. Then you will have
the question. We will finish our question first.
Okay.
Okay, CA Dhanesh Shah, if you have any question, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, now I can see. Sorry. Yeah, tell me.
Ganesh ji, you are unmuted. You can directly speak to speaker.
नहीं है? Chat box में क्या?
Self muted.
I think he is not able to. In between, can I ask one question, sir?
Sure.
This is continuation to your deliberation on prior approval from the client before filing the tax returns. As you know, in GST return, normally when we file, we get if we are not using DSC, then we get OTPs. Suppose the client's mobile number and email ID is registered, okay, and while filing return, if you take the SMS or the OTP either through SMS or email from the client itself, then is it properly compliant? No, there is no issue. In
Only
that case,
OTP.
we can say that, yeah, OTP.
My suggestion is that only OTP अगर वो forward कर रहा है तो वो सही नहीं है. OTP के साथ you can always say that I have seen the return, right? I approve it, and I request you to upload it on my behalf on the basis of this OTP. Such message आप एक draft करके रखो standard और वो ले सकते हो. That's sufficient.
Okay, and in case of DSC, there are some issues. Suppose my client is sitting at Kerala and they are giving a permanent letter stating that it is not possible for me to deliver this DSC every time. So, and I'm not preferable. It's not. We are not preferred to access like through remote control access. You can keep this DSC for filing income tax, GST, and company law purpose. So, it is. Is it a suffice or?
My suggestion to you is at least you get the returns approved from him.
Yeah, see, before filing the return, what we used to do, we send the draft return to them and we get approval. But only thing is, DSC, we have to keep at our office because they are giving the specific certificate stating that because of the distance, we are not in Maharashtra. So we are giving this DSC certificate to you. You can use it for filing different returns.
To my mind, it won't be an issue. There is no guidance as per DSC as such. I just sounded you people because there have been some cases. So some letter, some writing should be there, and somewhere
Okay.
one has to have a proper undertaking and guidance from the client. You also mention in your letter to written to client saying that we are keeping it in our office as instructed by you. We will not be responsible for any this thing. We will try and
Okay.
protect it, but we will not be responsible for this. And client also should consent to that. Security ले सकते हो, उतना ले लो.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, Dhanesh sir conveyed me one message that his question is already answered by you. It was about the certificate about terrorist fund, etc. So he's thankful to you, sir.
Okay.
Amol, any other questions?
No, there are no other questions.
If there are no other questions, I think we can go for a vote of thanks.
I have some small request, Mangesh sir. You just spoke about your office's internal formats. If you can share the format separately, that would be more beneficial, because in our area specifically, banks ask for certain certificates. We are
As I
fighting
said,
with banks.
I will definitely share. As I said, I am not attaching in the format
Yeah.
in the presentation because I am discussing certain institute formats. Then people should not misunderstand that. And individually, whatever my format I have prepared, I have given the disclaimer there. So I will share that with you. Right?
Okay,
You can share your number with me. I will share with you. You can just
Okay.
put a WhatsApp saying that kisko kisko chahiye.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But I will be sharing in a PDF format. Please, you will have to type on
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Please don't misunderstand.
No problem, sir.
So these youngsters are so clever, they can convert it in words within
Within
That
minutes.
is their responsibility. That is not my lookout. See, don't think it otherwise. Individually, I know you, but you know what happens in such scenario. नीचे का जो disclaimer है, all these things, people can say, अरे मंगेश सर ने बोला था final है करके. It's not like that. We have developed it. आपको जो सही लगता है आप करो. That is my suggestion. But I feel that ये चल गया है, and from all aspects legally, मतलब मुझे problem जो होगा नहीं होगा उसमें से उस हिसाब से वो सही है. इसमें और कोई भी और डेवलप कर सकता है. Somebody can develop more in that. No problem. Facts can be different in certain cases.
Now I would request past chairman of Navi Mumbai branch, CA Sanjay Nigam sir, to give the formal vote of thanks to today's speaker.
Thank you, Chairman, convener of Panvel Study Circle, Pratik Popat sir, and Amol Guyani, deputy convener, for giving me opportunity to be here with such a big dignitary, our very own Mangesh sir. And it is honor for me to say something about him, because every now and then I keep on praising him on everywhere we meet, because he has contributed too much to my life, my professional career also. So I owe him too much. Officially, I am now here to express our gratitude and respect to him for his contribution he has made to today's webinar. Friends, the vast experience Mangesh sir had in WRC, in administration. Also, he had big experience and he is very much instrumental in drafting policies for chartered accountant at central council level also. So that experience is very vital and important for us. And every now and then, whenever we have issues, we normally approach Mangesh Kinare sir as a professional colleague. He always there to support our members, youngsters, seniors also. So he's very own our own member. Friends, today while having the deliberation on this topic, though this topic is very formal, code of ethics, we normally, as a chartered accountant, we normally give doesn't give due importance. I say we doesn't give due importance to this topic. But after the enactment of NAFRA and recent cases going on around for disciplinary issues, this topic has attained importance in our professional life. And our very own people, our professional colleague like Mangesh sir, if they are guiding us, then there is no hesitation to ask any questions to him, and he politely answers all the questions. So there is a good interaction between sir and our members, and we congratulate Panvel CPA Study Circle to invite Mangesh sir to answer our queries, because over the period he has understood what our retail practitioners need to perform, how they're performing, and what kind of guidance they need. And such practical knowledge is very useful to us. Today, apart from code of ethics, he touched upon multidisciplinary partnership firms issues also. Sir, we would need you again for that aspect, because this is very primary topic for us. And now we are going to interact with the outsiders. So how our code of ethics is affecting it, and how their code of ethics will have an impact on it. That guidance we will expect from you. And very routine topics like holding. See, as a chartered accountant, we are custodian of information and very vital information of our client. We purchase their, like DSC was a very violent issue in this discussion. So how to protect those DSCs, how to handle the tax deposit given by the client to us, that you guided us. Documentation is very important, that you put emphasis on. And apart from all other things, one topic I'm taking here, and I like to guide our members also. Friends, kindly go through seriously go through the guidance note issued by the ICI on certification. It is a Bible for us, and as just like sir said, we have to prepare proper formats which are suitable to us, and very politely and decently sir put up one line there. We have to go through the trial and error method. We have to issue a reasonable assurance certificate. We have to try it with our client and the stakeholder. If they have some issues, we can modify. And Mangesh sir, like said, he is always available for guidance for such modification of certificates. So overall, this I would say it was a webinar, it was a deliberation, interaction, and you rightly pointed out our practical issues, sir. You answered so many questions before we asked the question. That shows the practical experience you had in these aspects. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much from bottom of my heart. And we owe you too much, sir. And thank you very much. Last but not the least, I thank delegates for patient hearing and asking questions to the learned speaker. Thank you very much and good day. I hand over the charge of the session to convener Jaman Varghese.
Thank you, Sanjay sir, for those wonderful words. CA Mangesh Kinare sir, we can call him like an encyclopedia in ethics. Okay, he's a guru in ethics. Wherever we strike, we always call Mangesh sir only for some kind of guidance, even if it is tender or some issues from our clients. Sir, without a second thought, when we approached you for this seminar, you accepted our invitation, and you have delivered a nice lecture, and it was wonderful and informative. The knowledge and your presentation was like awesome. Okay, in wherever we hear your seminars, regarding this ethics topics, we always have a fear in our mind that whether we are writing, whether we are doing the right things or not. Because deeper if we go, then we will have some more questions in our mind whether the certification or attestation whether we are doing in a proper way. So thank you so much, sir, for your nice deliberation and accepting our invitation. In future also, we expect your. Yes, sir.
Sure, sure. My only thing is that my intention is not to make you frightened. My intention is to give you solution, and that's why I give you certain formats, right? Let us have. I mean, you means me also. Solution to me also. Every time I think about it, I have one more aspect of it. So collectively, we have to derive solution. We are all small and medium practitioners. We are also same thing like you, same practice like you. So collectively, we have to bring to this solution that how we can develop ourselves. If you go through the standards and guidance note, these are typically for and assertions, all those things we may not understand at times. So we have to read it again, and devise ourselves. I can suggest you in study circle, you can devise certain formats of certificates for different purposes and think over it, discussion over it. If you want, I can be just a kind of one of you in discussing. There's no need of having me every time to delivering ourselves, and we can evolve different formats for ourselves and discuss and come out with certain things. Read those guidance notes, and definitely we can collectively evolve many things.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think with this we can conclude this session. Amol, you can stop recording. If we want to discuss something casually, we can discuss.
I will take your leave, Johan, please, because I have another session lined up after lunch.
Yes. Then let us wind this session, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, sir, again.
That's why I requested you to keep it in the morning, because I'm having right now at.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very
then
much.
We can wind up.
Anytime.
Thank you, sir.
Anytime in a smaller group, you can have discussions like this. I'll be there as a participant. Don't worry.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Amol,
Thank you.
Your number I can just share. Just put it in WhatsApp.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Bye. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Amol. Thank you, everybody.